We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, November 14th, 2011 meeting of the Evanston City Council. First item on the agenda is the mayor's public announcements. First, I would like to thank Commissioner Suffredin for his help in helping the citizens of Evanston to avoid a $250,000 parking tax for our municipal garages. Thank you, Larry. Second is Director Robinson here with the Governor's Sustainability Award. Suzette? She's coming. Welcome, Director Robinson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Alderman, Clerk Green, and City Manager. Suzette Robinson, the Director of Public Works. And on behalf of Catherine Hurley, the Sustainability Coordinator, and myself, we are presenting this award that we received to the mayor. And it was presented at we received the 25th Annual Governor's Sustainability Award. The award was presented by the Illinois Sustainability Technology Center, and the citation reads as follows. In recognition of your commitment to improving the environmental health and sustainability of Illinois, I am pleased to present you with the 25th Annual Governor's Sustainability Award for 2011. Your organization's commendable green practices serve as a model of environmental stewardship for residents, businesses, and institutions throughout our state. Governor Pat Quinn congratulated Catherine Hurley, Sustainability Programs Coordinator, and Suzette Robinson, Director of Public Works, on their achievements. I feel honored to be recognized by the Governor for the city's sustainability practice. I think this award recognizes the achievements for the entire city because in Evanston it is truly a partnership between the city departments, the elected officials, residents, and businesses that all earn this award. So, Mayor, we are entrusting this to you.
And I would like to agree with the governor that, yes, Evanston deserves it, but particularly thank you, Suzette and Catherine. You all deserve it most of all. Thanks. Now, to make use of the podiums on both sides, would Dana, Watson, Carroll please join me? Thank you, Wally. Over here. The Chicagoland area, including Evanston, has many apartment communities available for residents of the area to call home. To celebrate the various communities and to let them know what they're doing right for their residents, the Chicagoland Apartment Association holds an annual gala to give out the Chicagoland Apartment Marketing and Management Excellence Awards to multifamily housing companies and professionals that have demonstrated excellence in the previous year. At this year's gala, on October 28th, Evanston's 415 Premier was honored with 5 CAMI awards in the following categories, and you can see them up there. Best one-bedroom floor plan, best two-bedroom floor plan, best maintenance team, best common area renovation, best exterior renovation. And so the city of Evanston, wanting to recognize our landlords who are some of whom are absolutely outstanding, presents this award for excellence to the 415 Premier Apartments in recognition of October 28th, 2011 CAMI Awards, Chicagoland Apartment Marketing and Management Excellence Awards, for Best One-Bedroom Floor Plan, Best Two-Bedroom Floor Plan, Best Maintenance Team, Best Common Area Renovation, and Best Exterior Renovation. We are so proud. And you're Joe's landlord, so you win for that as well. Here you go. And would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you. So I'm going to try not to be nervous. Madam Mayor, Alderman Rainey, and the entire City Council, thank you for the opportunity to be recognized. As an active and proud member of the Howard Street Business Association, I speak for every member when I say we are excited about all the changes that will be coming to Howard Street with the purchase of 3 new buildings, which I'm sure the residents of 415 Premier Apartments will frequent. If any of you are on Howard Street, hopefully shopping, you'll stop in and say hi, and I'd love to give you a tour of the property. Thanks, and good night.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say a few words. In 2006, 415 Howard was a giant vacant lot, and it had been vacant for many years. I claim it was vacant 100 years, and nobody has yet proven me wrong on that. So this is the result, really, of another one of our very smart moves having to do with establishing TIFs. 17 stories, 221 deluxe Class A units now sits on this property. And I cannot tell you how appreciative we are of Dana Carroll on Howard Street. The building is gorgeous, and the exterior is just magnificent. And even at least one of our city employees I know lives there. So that's just fabulous. Thank you very much, Dana, for all you do for the Business Association and for Howard Street.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. City Manager, do you have public announcements?
No, ma'am.
City Clerk, do you have communications for us?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next is, I'd like to open the public hearing on truth in taxation for the 2011 property tax levy for the City of Evanston and the Township of Evanston, and open the public hearing fiscal year 2012 proposed budget for the City of Evanston. And we have 45 minutes allocated for public comment. So if each person takes about 2.5 minutes, we should get through this. I'm going to call the first 4 names, and if you'd be ready to speak after the previous speaker and give your name and address, that would be terrific. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question has to do with public comment being directed only to the Truth in Taxation hearing, or is the citizen comment for our council meeting as well?
No, it is not citizen comment for the council meeting as well.
Right, so this is 45 minutes of public comment
On the budget.
specifically for the budget and the levy.
That's correct.
Thank you.
First is Michael Berman, Betty Esther, Stephen Morticelli, 1615 Ridge, and Virginia Mann. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Michael Berman, 926 Ridge Avenue. I'm here to speak about the proposed budget cuts that will result in the layoff of 6 employees of the Parks and Forestry Department and the outsourcing of the Crossing Guards program. Evanston is a unique community. People live in Evanston because of its values, its spirit, its record of service by its community workforce to the residents, and because of the beauty of its streets, parks, and lakefronts. It is important to not turn Evanston into just another suburb with few trees, streets clogged with snow, and with a lack of community interest by the people working in the city. The Parks and Forestry Department has provided excellent service for over 25 years that I've lived in Evanston. These services have included surveying the elm trees for Dutch elm disease, and when requested, taking and analyzing samples from the trees to see if they're infected, and discussing the health of the elm trees with the residents of the city. They also provide the excellent Elms Tree Insurance Program for the removal of infected trees. When I first moved to Evanston, I had to remove a tree from my property. I had another large, beautiful tree that working with the forestry department, we just took off one of the limbs and I was able to save that tree for over 20 years. And recently I had to remove it because, but it was covered by the elm tree insurance, so I had the benefit of the tree for over 20 years, and I saved thousands of dollars under the insurance program when I had to remove it. In addition, Evanston's successful cross-training program has enabled many Evanston city workers to help with tasks outside of their departments such as snow removal. Fewer city workers, and particularly with fewer ones in the Parks and Forestry Department, when there is an emergency such as a snowstorm or a windstorm, there'd be fewer people to call on. If the city depends on contractors, the city might have to wait for long periods of time to have a fallen tree removed from a major roadway or to have snow cleared. In the Midwest, it is a highly important priority of city and town government to keep the roadways cleaned and cleared of snow. Continue the excellent all-around services of the Parks and Forestry Department and preserve the quality of life in Evanston. The workers from the Parks and Forestry Department should be maintained by the city. On another topic, it would also be a mistake to outsource the crossing guards program. It's my understanding that the current proposed budget would only guarantee, if there's outsourcing, would only guarantee employment for the first year of the current personnel that are crossing guards. So my questions would be, who would be hired to be the Evanston crossing guards after the first year? Would they be community residents? What if there is a dispute over the contract? Would services be withheld, which of course is unacceptable? What would Evanston do then? Like other public safety programs such as police and fire, the crossing guards program should and must be maintained by the city to ensure the safety of its children. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before I speak, I have a question for clarification. According to what Alderman Grover asked you, Mayor Tisdale, is that our comments is just supposed to be for the public hearing on truth and taxation and the budget. So does that mean I can come back and speak on item H2?
Of course you can, Betty.
Thank you very much. My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. At the last Fifth Ward meeting, we had the honor of having our city manager there, Mr. Barkowitz. Thank you. Didn't mess it too bad this time. And he went through the budget and everything, and it was very interesting, helpful, and kind of quick, but it was very interesting. One of the things that in questions that was raised and got a lot of comments on was what was proposed to do with the sewage tax, well, it's not tax, it's fee, that we currently have. When the sewage project came into place, it was stated that that rate of interest fee to pay for the sewage would go our way in 2013. That's 2 years away. It was told to us that we have money there to pay it off. It's been paid. The sewage work has been paid. That the money that's there will be used to flow over and to pay for the replacement of water pipes underground and everything. And that the council, you people, was thinking about keeping the sewage tax. And we said, what? So my question is, I understand we need revenue and that is a good source. If you're going to keep that tax, which you promised the people that you would not keep, I would recommend that you roll it back to the rate that it started when it first started, not at the current rate, and not to keep increasing. We should have a budget or some idea of how much money is needed to spend on the water, to put in the water pipes in. Otherwise, with not that happening, those two things of taking it back to the current rate when it was when it first started, or cutting it that the rate will not go up, then the sewage rate tax fee should be eliminated in 2013. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Virginia Mann.
Virginia Mann, 3004 Normandy Place. To Rescue Evanston Elms, also known as TREE, was formed not only to save Evanston's majestic elm trees, but because doing so was the economically responsible thing to do. Injecting elm trees, as we have seen, is far less expensive to the city of Evanston than is cutting them down. In adopting the full elm tree injection program, Evanston has saved hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. Unfortunately, these cost savings have been offset by the prevalence of the emerald ash borer and the need to ultimately cut down our 4,000 Parkway ash trees. While we understand the need to make certain that we are maximizing every tax dollar, some of the suggested changes to the Forestry Department and staff raise serious concerns. Although I have at times disagreed with the Forestry Department, I believe that today they are a valued and knowledgeable partner to TREE and to all Evanston residents in protecting our valuable trees, which are a key part of our natural infrastructure. I encourage the City Council to explore ways to maintain our Forestry Department tree trimmers and secretarial position as part of the next budget. They are knowledgeable and dedicated guardians of our valued trees and a very important partner to the citizens of Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Junad Rizki, Michael Baker, Elizabeth Kosemba, and Mike Vasilko.
Tomorrow. Truth in taxation. It appears the city didn't really want the truth of the 8% property tax increase to be well known. This really was never stated really in any meeting, nor have council members or the mayor agreed to this 8% increase. Nobody seems to want to talk about it. I mean, it's basically been sort of avoided. And that's what we have, an 8% property tax increase that nobody's talking about. That's really not very truthful. But what concerns me is I feel that if it's 8% this year, what is it next year? Because we have double the problem next year, so we're talking a 10 or 15% property tax increase. And we all know that's not going to be sustainable, and that's a problem. So I think, this has been somewhat misrepresented to the public. The public really doesn't know the seriousness of the situation. I want to make another point. We had a capital presentation last week, and here again we had a bit of a misrepresentation. We called the Maple Avenue Garage storefront. We have a Maple Avenue Garage storefront project. Well, what was that project? Is it to fix a facade on a building we built 10 years ago? No, it's a $150,000 project. No. What it is there's a space inside the Maple Avenue Garage the city never bothered to finish that it could not rent. And basically that space has been sitting all these years unrented, wasting taxpayer money. And I've talked to someone who wanted to even rent it, who approached the city about it. And what that does is they have to fix, basically the city knows it has to fix the slab inside there. There's no floor slab poured in a building. Of course, that's an interesting question. Tonight we're talking about city inspections of landlords, yet the city doesn't even fix its own building for fit occupancy. And there's no electrical or mechanical in there. And that's really pretty interesting. So we've wasted probably anywhere from probably $500,000 to $1 million of lost revenue to the taxpayers of this community. The other issue I have is the city thinks it's going into business with a lot of things here. And I have not seen any sound business analysis really being presented in a lot of these things. I have asked quite a few times up here about the operation of the City of Evanston water plant, because we think this is a gold mine to make money. But we don't know if the current operation is even profitable, because we're selling water at such low rates to other communities. 80% of that plant is being sold elsewhere and at very low rates. But nobody really has done an analysis or showed us our profitability. And that's really a simple business principle the city can't seem to want to do, because it probably doesn't want to tell us what's going on there. And I mean, I've listened to some other presentations here that are just not telling us what's going on. And I mean, this, and then I listened to what they want, a 30% water increase. Well, that's really not acceptable to me as a taxpayer. I'll be back tomorrow night, of course, and I do have something I want to say at citizen comment about another topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Baker. I'm co-chair of the Community Labor Alliance for Public Services, and as you can imagine, I'm here to talk about the 2012 proposed budget. Most notably, the privatization of our public services. Given the time constraints, I won't offer a survey of the horizon of all the problems with privatization, and there are a plethora. I'll just speak about one aspect, and that's economic development. As we all know, we need to focus on economic development in Evanston. One of our greatest assets, if not our greatest asset, in the city is our beautiful lakefront. If we outsource the 6 forestry staff positions and the administrative position, as proposed in the 2012 budget, the conditions of our lakefront will face an inevitable decline. According to the city's own report, 38 services currently done by Parks and Forestry staff would not be done if turned over to a private vendor. In addition, the head of the Department of Parks and Forestry stated in a memo to the City Council that the possible savings would likely be short-lived. As a result, it's rather astonishing that a proposal that could be so detrimental to the aesthetic and economic well-being of our community, with little or no economic gain, and which the city's own engaged Evanston survey, citizen petitions, and other measures show citizens do not support, appears in the proposed budget still. As a result, I ask that the City Council reinstate the Parks and Forestry positions and all the other proposed eliminations immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Kosemba, 1101 Forest Avenue. Evanston Round Table, November 9. Property tax increase apparently taken for granted. As aldermen debated the proposed city budget for fiscal year 2012, they made little mention of the proposed 7.9% increase in the city portion of the property city, focusing in large part on how they might restore some of the city worker positions that may be eliminated. So sounds like it's done deal, but anyhow, I will state my opinion. I have lived in Evanston for 11 years, and since then, each year, I like here less and less and less, almost to the point that my family is ready to move out. It's a difficult time in our economy right now, and it seems very inappropriate time to increase again the municipal portion of our property taxes when so many individuals as well as businesses are struggling to survive. Everyone should bear the weight of it, including the city. Local government should lead the example of logical and realistic forms of dealing with financial challenges. The American families are doing more with less. It's time for all levels of government to follow, starting with the city of Evanston. Perhaps the city should make cuts and have to tighten their belts like us. The town's financing appears to be a mess. The town needs to rethink how they are doing business, new ways to maintenance vital government services while dramatically slowing the growth in government spending. We need smarter decisions. We are tired of inefficient and costly manner in which this town is run. Where is fiscal responsibility of these people we vote into office? When money is tight, the answer always seems to be the same: raise property taxes, instead of sharpening the pencil and fix the problem. Do the people in charge of running Evanston Township run their household as poorly as they manage our town budget? We can't just tax everyone to death or till they will move out or are foreclosed on. This town really needs new leadership, needs volunteers who will share their expertise for free, take action, lead and mentor. We also need to find another means to address cost of living increases for city employees at this time. After all, a lot of us who work in the private sector are not receiving any cost of living adjustment to our income. Mr. Babkiewicz set aside funds in a budget to give city workers a 2% pay hike when the average U.S. citizen real income declined around 7% or more. We do not need to increase taxes. We need to cut back on spending, which may to include reduction of workforce, like most of the private sector has gone through. We are saying no to municipal portion of property tax hike 8%. We are saying no to the losing value of our property market. We are saying no to losing our shrinking lifestyle. We are saying no to losing homes overburdened already but over-assessed property taxes. The proverbial well is almost dry. Please do not take the last drop.
Thank you.
Mike Fasolko, 2728 Reese Avenue in Evanston. Regardless of where the funds come from, some expenditures create a terrible perception for the average citizen in Evanston. On one hand, the city is proposing tax increases. Personally, I'm vehemently against property tax increases of any kind, 8% or anything else, while at the same time, other expenditures are badly timed. For example, downtown Evanston, Evmark's budget is increasing by $40,000. Evanston contributes $80,000 on average each year to Evmark. I don't question that the downtown Evanston staff do a lot. I see Carolyn pretty much everywhere across and in and around Evanston. However, of downtown Evanston's services, some of those are duplicated by the Chamber of Commerce, for instance. The Chamber addresses all of the business needs of all of Evanston, not just downtown. I don't feel this is a year for increasing budgets, especially if the city is contributing tax dollars and especially if other organizations are duplicating services. Another example is developers of the property at the southeast corner of Main Street in Chicago at the last EDC meeting argued against accepting an additional $20,000 at this time. They didn't want the money, but EDC, regardless, approved the money for expenditure. Another example is I would argue against spending one dime for the so-called facade improvements illustrated on the property at 604, 606 Davis Street. This is not an improvement by any definition I can think of. Also, a $250,000 budget for city-wide sign design was discussed in relation to developing an RFP for these services at the last EDC meeting. This should be a very low priority during our troubled economic times. The $250,000 would not buy one sign in Evanston. It would just be for consulting services. This RFP and the money should not go any further at this time. These are just a few examples of city money perceived to be wasted at a time when the city is considering raising property taxes, other taxes, and fees. Please vote against these and other wasteful expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Leslie Bull, Kevin O'Connor, David Coker, and Leigh Skinner Anderson.
Hello, my name is Leslie Bull, and I live at 1123 Ridge Avenue. I've been an Evanston homeowner and a resident for the past 10 years, and I felt compelled to come tonight to express my viewpoint on the proposed nearly 8% property tax increase for the municipal portion. As a board member of a 400-unit condo building in Chicago, I have an understanding and an appreciation for many of the budgetary issues the City Council faces. However, given the current economic environment with many families facing unemployment and struggling with their household finances, I think it is egregious to impose such a large percentage property tax increase once again, which far outstrips the rate of inflation. The proposed increase seems all the more surprising in light of the significant drop in property values homeowners have experienced over the past few years. Additionally, many residents have faced job losses and wage cuts. I fear continuing to increase taxes at rates surpassing the CPI mean pricing many Evanston families, some of them long-standing, out of the community. I believe there would be a greater turnout to protest this proposed increase this evening, but many are working hard to put food on the table and pay their bills. Just as numerous households and communities across the nation have had to tighten and reconfigure their budgets, making tough and very difficult cost-cutting decisions, I feel the City Council needs to take a more conservative approach to the city's fiscal matters before placing additional burdens on the community's homeowners. I hope the City Council can be more sensitive and responsive to the Evanston community's needs in this regard. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kevin O'Connor, 1227 and a half, Isabella. Einstein is quoted as saying, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. I bring this quote up because of the council's continued spending of our scarce tax dollars to bribe companies to stay in Evanston, come to Evanston, fix their facades, or plain just giving our tax dollars away with no repayment. When the Downtown 2 TIF was under discussion, the city claimed that at the end of the TIF, of the 23-year TIF, if allowed, there would be no need for tax increases. The reality is that now, even with the additional $9 million from the Downtown 2 TIF, we face an 8% property tax increase, higher fees, and less services. There is not enough lipstick or perfume to cover up our fiscal disaster. Worse yet, there is no accountability or ownership taken by this council, nor is there a budget deficit of $2.8 million, only misplaced priorities. Finally, we are past the fiscal tipping point in Evanston, and the truth will have to come out. Unfortunately, it must be done through those activist citizens who are ever vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the City Council, Mayor Tisdall and staff, my name is David Colker. I live at 1145 Judson Avenue. I'd first like to say thanks to each of you for your hard work. I know representing Evanston is a difficult and demanding task, and I appreciate the effort you're making to help the community. I'd like to briefly offer one idea for the revenue side of the business, of the budget, that I hope you find useful and constructive. The idea is a simple one, to have the banks compete to manage the city's assets. I believe that responsible financial management requires an organization as large as Evanston to hold its assets in more than one bank. Given the country's recent financial difficulties, it's just not prudent to have all your eggs in one basket. With respect to the budget, division of city assets between two or more banks would force these banks to continuously compete with each other, and this would lead to increased interest income for Evanston. If the city could earn as little as 1 or 2% more than it does today, that could translate into significant additional revenue, which would help balance the budget and relieve the pressure to cut services. My suggestion could be easily accomplished by having the council direct the city manager to issue a request for proposal to the banking community. After reviewing the RFPs, the city manager could then redistribute city assets to two or more banks in a manner that maximizes both safety and profitability. To ensure the ongoing effectiveness of this, the City Council could review the city's financial performance annually during this budget process and adopt recommended changes at that time. Thanks for your consideration, and thanks again for all the work you're doing for Evanston.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Lee Skinner Anderson, 1123 Noyes Street. One of your goals for 2012 is your climate action plan, and I read it the other day, and optimize tree planting, prevent unnecessary tree removals, protect existing trees for maximum carbon storage. You will not be able to protect existing trees without a forestry department. I strongly urge you to keep the 4 forestry positions, the secretary position of the forestry, and also the parks position that does the lakefront. These are your stated goals, not mine, and I happen to agree with them. Living things require flexibility and the ability to move quickly, and you need people to do that. Having a public works and not a private works is the only way to truly do that for living things. It will give us the needed flexibility. Evanston recently celebrated 150 years, and every time we talk about subcontracting out or turning our public works into private works, it makes me feel like we're going out of business soon. Are we only going to run the city for 5 more years? The long-term effect of privatizing and subcontracting out a lot of our forestry work will be very devastating on our forest. We used to outsource our tree trimming in the year 2000 when I moved here, and it was a disaster. We stopped that after 1 year. There needs to be a community standard of forestry that we uphold whether we're having a bad year or a good year. The trees need to be trimmed every 6 years whether we have a bad year or a good year. We need to replant trees within 1 year when they die. You need forestry workers to do this. And let me help you find some money. Don't grind any stumps, grind no tree stumps this year. That is $71,000 that you can save. We're 5 years behind in our tree planting. So we don't need to grind any stumps. The tree saplings are not ready to go in their place. Please keep those forestry positions. It is not fiscally responsible. I'm having an actually very tough year. I got divorced 3 years ago, and I'm very frightened of my taxes going up, but I would never ask my city council to lower my community standard of basic city services, and having a forestry department is one of them. So nobody wants their taxes to go up, but cutting these forestry positions doesn't make any sense. Cutting the secretary position doesn't make sense. It would bring the department to their knees. She fields 1,000 phone calls from residents every year. The forestry workers that you're thinking about cutting, do tree trimming, they remove dead trees, they do Dutch elm disease cutouts, they do storm damage response, they do tree planting, they do stump removal, they assist with the American Elm Inoculation Program, and they do snow removal. These are not well thought out suggestions to you, and I'm sorry that no one gave you better suggestions to save money, but cutting these don't make a long-term sense. Thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker on the budget is Lisa Land. Is Lisa here? Yes. You want to be? Okay. Thank you. All right. All right, that concludes citizen comment on the public hearings. And the next agenda item is citizen comment. So we'll move right along with Madeline Ducray.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. We need to adjourn. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Aye. The meeting is adjourned. The hearing. Are parliamentarians all happy? Thank you. Next is Madeline Ducray, Steve Morticelli, Howard Handler, and Barbara Blades. They all. They found the wrong sheet, I think. Madeline, did you want to speak again? No. Okay. Barbara does not. All right.
I'm not going to speak tonight. I'm going to wait until I hear the council and what they're saying, and then I'll make my comment again.
Okay. Thank you, Madeline. All right, I believe Mr. Handler has left and Barbara's not speaking, so we have Priscilla Giles, yes, you can, but could Priscilla speak first, please, because she hasn't spoken yet? And Mary Rosinski. We have Junad Risky signed up twice. You want, okay.
I understood this was the non-agenda?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Priscilla Giles, and I live at 1829 Ashland in Evanston. And I have two non-agenda items that I think need to be kept in the forefront of the minds of the City Council and citizens of Evanston. One is the Emerson Street Square, which has been approved and pushed by the city. In opposition to the people who live in Evanston, especially those who live 500, not in Evanston, I'm sorry, but 500 feet of the development, who are expected to pay for the infrastructure that has not been consistently approved of. It's been said that the city would do it, and then it's been said that the citizens would do it, and then it has also been said that the developers would do it. We are getting conflicting remarks about that. The second thing I'd like to speak to is also in the 5th Ward, and that is about the driveway in front of Fleetwood Jourdain. This I have spoken about several times, and it is still a problem. It's still not there. It's still not fixed, and people come in with walkers. Wheelchairs are not able to get in easily. Even the back that is supposed to be accessible, there is no space for turnaround for the people to come in. When people drop their children off for sports, there is no place for them to drop off. They have to stop the traffic in back of them, or they have to go into a parking lot where there is no place to turn around. I think this is a small thing. When I think about the ways that the city has decided to spend some money, this is a small thing to do to make it possible for people to come in without struggling. This is unsafe and it's unconscionable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mary Rosinski. I live at 1729 Chancellor, and I'm actually here to ask everyone in Evanston who has a phone and know how to text to help the Evanston Public Library Friends win the $10,000 Pepsi Refresh Grant. If you can vote every day in November, and if we win, we are going to use the money to buy books for some of our West Side distribution locations like Buku, Ridgeville, Ada Rice Center. We have the voluntary library place. So you don't forget, all you have to do is text 73774. You don't need any other number. And then in the subject line, you put 109325. The good news is we've gone up from 178 to 40 to 35 to 24, but we need to be in the top 15 to win the $10,000 grant. So won't cost you anything. Just use your phones for good purposes, please.
Thank you very much. And I hope the TV cameras pick that up also. All right, Mr. Rizky, Padma Raya, B.K. Rayo, and Betty Esther. Oh, I'm sorry. There. Go right ahead.
I apologize, Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor and the City Council. My name is Lisa Lode, and I am here representing Faith Temple Church at 1932 Dewey. My first year as a resident of Evanston was in 1968, but this is my first time speaking at a council meeting, so I don't know if I'm in the right place at the right time, but
you're doing great.
Okay, good. The reason I am here, I am currently and have been for the past 5 years the president of our local missions department. And in the past couple of years, we have received a number of requests from Evanston residents who need help in paying their utilities and their rent. And so we're here because we're very concerned about some of the budget cut proposals for the new budget, and we would just like to encourage the City Council to keep these residents in mind as you make your decisions. Evanston has always been rich in culture and in community, and we strongly encourage the Council to continue in the same vein. We are willing to do our part as a church, and we have helped both members and non-members who are in need of assistance in paying their rent, but we need the city to continue to help us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a non-agenda topic. It's about a FOIA. I filed a Freedom of Information request with the city on the fire back in May at the Evanston water plant. It appears the city doesn't have desire to provide me the information that I requested. It's a consultant's report that was prepared by Factory Mutual, basically the insurance carrier for the city, that was basically probably showed the cause of the fire. The city does not seem interested in turning that document over to me. And I find it very troubling that the city doesn't want to turn a document over to me that tells me what happened with a fire. And the reason I'm concerned about that is the city correcting the problem. The council has somewhat of a responsibility to really ask questions like this of staff. Why isn't the staff turning over a document like this to the public, and why aren't they, the council, interested? When this was represented in capital plan, basically staff ignored any reason or cause of the fire. They didn't tell you why the fire happened. They talked about adjusting it and getting it fixed, but they didn't tell you what caused the fire. And that to me is a dangerous situation, because then I don't know if staff's ever corrected the problem. And frankly, if they haven't corrected the problem and you have a second fire and somebody gets hurt, that's not going to be a good thing for the city. So, I mean, I think the city staff needs to turn over the document. The document was mentioned in other documents of the city that it exists, so the reason for not turning it over makes no sense. I think basically either somebody here doesn't want to tell us what happened because it either was an error of the city or there's some other issue, but I think there better be a better reason than it's just we're covering something up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Padma Rao, 2246 Sherman. My comments have been reviewed and approved by my attorney. We stated concerns about this council's vote for a dangerous alley plan and the needless killing of over 24 trees at Kendall. Why didn't this council address a single concern or answer any of our contentions of law, science, or logic? Why did this council ignore Section 617.6 of the City Code, which requires preservation of existing trees? This council allowed closed-door meetings that excluded the public from discussions of this public issue. The Evanston Patch reported that Alderman Fisk was overheard assuring the developer's lawyer that the vote would be pushed through regardless of taxpayers' concerns. Why did this council vote without any discussion? Does that suggest that this council fulfilled its oath to uphold the taxpayers' interests, or does it suggest otherwise? The bill's lists for August 8, 2011 and March 14, 2011 show payments to the law firm Holland & Knight. The packet for March 14th also includes a letter from the developer's lawyer stating that Holland & Knight was hired to sue the city. These facts from city records show a conflict of interest, one which is very expensive for the taxpayers. Why does this council try to suppress all discussion of this issue when it involves tens of thousands of tax dollars? Council minutes from May 10, 2010 state that Alderman Fisk's son works for Holland & Knight, which raises another conflict of interest. The U.S. Supreme Court held in Nevada Commission on Ethics versus Kerrigan that Kerrigan, a council member, was prohibited from advocating for or voting on a casino project when the developer hired Kerrigan's friend and campaign manager as a paid consultant on the same project. In light of this ruling, how can Alderman Fisk advocate and vote on the Kendall project when the developer hired her son's law firm for the same project? When we state our concerns, this council attacks us, claiming so-called decorum as an excuse for content-based, speaker-based, and viewpoint-based discrimination, all in violation of the First Amendment. Does this council try to silence us because of our ethnic background or our religious beliefs? Why doesn't this council censure its member for interrupting public comment? Each agenda states that aldermen do not respond during citizen comment. This council doesn't observe its own rules, so how can it justify unconstitutional restraints on taxpayer speech? It's plainly wrong for this council to conduct closed-door meetings, vote despite having conflicts of interest, and ignore taxpayers' concerns. Violating our constitutional right to point out these failings makes matters worse. Instead, this council should protect the trees and protect the pedestrians. See you all next time.
Thank you.
B.K. Rao, 2246 Sherman Avenue. My comments have been reviewed and approved by my attorney. My comments center around one main issue, the Kendall property re-subdivision. This project involves killing many trees and endangering pedestrians for no reason. The First Ward Alderman championed this plan, and the Evanston Patch reported that she assured the developer's lawyer that the vote would be pushed through regardless of taxpayers' concerns. When we pointed out that a public official ignoring taxpayers' concerns is unacceptable, the mayor repeatedly interrupted us on one pretext or another. To make matters worse, the person from the 8th Ward broke council rules by interrupting public comment in order to misrepresent my daughter's statements regarding the conflict of interest involving Holland & Knight. You all took an oath to protect the taxpayers' interests. Why do you allow such unconstitutional behavior from your colleagues. People whom I do not even know are telling me that they are proud of me and my daughter for stating our concerns and standing up for our rights. They agree that we have every right to demand that this council protect the trees and pedestrians at Kendall. Trees are a valuable part of our community and history, which should not be needlessly sacrificed. According to Thoreau, every creature is better alive than dead, men and moose and pine trees, and he who understands it aright will rather preserve its life than destroy it. Henry David Thoreau, Chesapeake, The Maine Woods, written in 1848. I am not asking for any more or any less than compliance with the city code. Keep the pedestrians safe and let the trees at Kendall live. It is your duty to the taxpayers. And I will be back.
Thank you.
My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. I'm here tonight speaking on agenda item H2, ordinance 92-0-11, amending certain provision of Title 8, Chapter 16 of the Evanston Municipal Code entitled Marijuana. This topic was discussed at the Human Service Committee, and they voted to send it here. I would ask that the council return it to the Human Service Committee to further discuss and follow the suggestions that was offered by Kate Mahoney of Peer Service. Peer Service is a alcohol and drug abuse counseling service. Her suggestion was that the kids should go to counseling and do community service. I would offer that that be not just one, but it would be for 12 years, from 12 to 8 years for the community service. This, I think, would give them a more concrete listening and involvement than having a $50 or $500 fine. As was pointed out by Mrs. DeKelp, that most of the young people that they cited as being involved in having less than 10 ounces of marijuana was African American and Hispanic kids. They gave us the location and the sites where the policemen had been frisking the kids, and they came up with the number. They did not give us a number of the number of kids that was involved. The chief gave us a number of 98 in 2009 and 82 in 2010. Those was the number of children that had on them less than 10 ounces of marijuana. When it was asked, how do the policemen know when it's 10 ounces or less? And it was stated that they use their judgment. If we are here to be adults and correct our children, I think we need to be giving them guidance, not always punishment. The ticket, like the curfew tickets, the kids get them, they come here, the parents pay them. And the kids, sometimes they are out more than once. We need to look at our statistics. But what bothered me more was the statistics that Mrs. DeKelp gave when she said the numbers, that it was lots of numbers, that they was targeting an area that was strictly where minority kids live. That's a problem, a big problem that we should look at. And if we do not go back and really look at this and address all issues, what are we saying? Some can and some can't. It matters where you live or not. I don't think that's what we are saying. We are trying to tell the kids, you do not need to smoke marijuana.
Betty Sue, I need you to wrap up, please.
Thank you. Because as Principal Clark says, it does hurt your brains and it does hurt the kids. if they are tested when they go to look for a job, they don't get that job. So we need to be trying to teach them and help them to learn and do it in a different way. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Next, we have Morris Robinson, Carolyn DeLutri, and Meg, who lives on Simpson. And I'm sorry, Morris Robinson, Jr.
Good evening, Mayor, Alderman. My name is Morris Robinson, Jr. Most people know me as Dino. I'm at 2121 Church Street. I'm here to express overall concern on and about the services provided by the Evanston Public Library as they finalize their upcoming budget. What I say here tonight reflects a similar citizen feedback I presented back in August of this year at the library board meeting. This also takes into account conversations I've had with many community members with similar concerns. Quoting the Evanston Library Association's 1860 constitutional statement, to establish and maintain a public library and reading room, and in connection with this, by all suitable means, to awaken a desire for sound knowledge and correct taste, and to provide for the gratification of the same among all classes of the community. The Evanston Public Library faces several challenges in the coming years as it transitions itself to its own tax levying organization to support its yearly operational budget. One of the challenges it is to prove and provide equitable services throughout all of Evanston. I do believe the library and its supporters are in a unique position of opportunity to realign itself with its mission and purpose. It has done so in the past, even through difficult decisions. A good example of this was the closing of the West Branch in 1981. Though met with frustration and maybe anger, the Evanston Library played a major outreach role in the founding of Foster Reading Center that effectively promoted reading in the neighborhood. The program and its many spin-offs are still active today. Advocacy like this has brought together many organizations to collectively bring literary programs throughout Evanston. It is a far more effective way of equitable outreach that demonstrates collaboration that does not give the impression of funds funneled to a specific site. The establishment of a community engagement position whose main responsibility is to oversee, develop, and maintain community connections and collaborations, promote library services, implement adult and child services, and supervise youth outreach would be a strong addition to the library staff. The library had two proposals on its table: to impose a tax levy of 1% that would close North Branch and fulfill the community engagement position, or to impose a tax levy of 6% that would keep the North Branch open and hire the engagement staff. However, now that the proposal includes an adjustment to reflect rent for the North Branch, the new proposal would possibly eliminate the community engagement staff and possibly increasing the tax levy. Intelligent use of limited library funds not only promotes due diligence, it also garners trust from within the community that a capable board is envisioning a strong future for the Evanston Public Library and the services to a greater community. What should be avoided is a proposal that services few while other communities are still left behind, but also have to pay. Let us advocate for a strong single library with programs that benefit, again, I quote, all classes of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. We're here to remind you that the holidays are just around the corner and that the downtown Evanston tree lighting will take place a week from tomorrow in downtown Evanston. And we have Mayor Tisdall along with Rotary International's Deputy General Secretary Pete DeBurge and Santa Claus arriving at Fountain Square on the fire truck. Immediately following the tree lighting ceremony, there will be a festive warm-up reception with holiday goodies hosted by Rotary International at their world headquarters in the Cafe International on Sherman Avenue. And there is free parking in their garage that evening for the festivities. We also want to let you know that Light Opera Works and the Music of Institute of Chicago will be performing that evening. And in the spirit of holiday giving, warm essentials such as socks, long underwear, gloves, hats, etc., will be accepted at the reception for a donation to Hilda's Place, which is Evanston's emergency housing and support services for the homeless. So we hope you'll join us at 5:30 p.m. a week from Tuesday at Fountain Square. Thank you.
Thank you. right, is Meg here? Seeing no one, I believe that that concludes public comment. Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda? All right. Is there anyone who wants to speak who has not?
Okay, never mind.
Nope, she's heading the opposite direction. All right, that does conclude public comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the consent agenda. First is approval of the minutes of the special city council meeting of October 15, the minutes of October 24, and the special city council meeting of October 29. The Administration and Public Works dealt with the following items. The committee requests your approval of the payroll through October 23rd in the amount of $2,561,778.86. The city bills for October 2011 in the amount of $2,962,172.83, and the city credit card activity through September 30th in the amount of $115,017.93. The committee requests your approval for a contract award for inventory of traffic signs, street lights, and traffic signals to Christopher Burke Engineering in the amount of $96,000. This includes a management plan to replace the traffic signs that do not meet minimum retro reflectivity standards as required by the Federal Highway Administration. The committee asks your approval also for the city manager to award contracts for snow towing services to various towing companies. A list was attached to your packet in an amount not to exceed $75,000. Committee also requests your approval for change order number 3 in the amount of $25,504 to the agreement with Keno and Sons Construction Company for the 1964 Filter Addition Rehab Project. This increases the contract from $3,462,839 to $3,488,343. Next, the committee asks your approval, approval for introduction for the tax levy ordinance 100-011, which levies the annual property tax for the general fund operations, IMRF, police and fire pensions. Note, this is just for introduction. We're not taxing anybody tonight. Next for introduction is ordinance 101-011, the 2011 Special Service Area Number 4 tax levy. A7 is 102-011, the 2011 Township Tax Levy. This is for introduction also. Next, Madam Mayor, we ask approval for introduction of Ordinance 93-011, which increases the number of Class D liquor licenses to permit issuance to Old Neighborhood Grill, Inc. Additionally, we ask for a suspension of the rules on this item, and the committee chair will move for approval. Next is Ordinance 94-011. Liquor Commissioner and the Administration and Public Works Committee recommends introduction, suspension of the rules, and adoption of Ordinance 94-011, amending subsection 356C of the City Code to increase the number of Class C liquor licenses from 26 to 27 to permit issuance of Austin's Tacos, LLC. I am moving introduction in the consent agenda and suspension of the rules for this item. The committee chair will address the adoption. Next, Madam Mayor, the committee requests approval to introduce and suspend the rules on decreasing the number of Class C liquor licenses due to the closure of Carmen's Pizza. This will reduce the number of licenses from 27 to 26. This is housekeeping. The pizza parlor closed in the spring of 2011. The committee chair will address the action item. Next, Ordinance 96011. We recommend introduction, suspension of the rules, and adoption of this ordinance, which amends 356C of the City Code to increase the number of Class C liquor licenses. And Mr. Corporation Counsel, are we having a problem with these numbers or not? This is the 26 to 27, the one that Alderman Holmes pointed out.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Clerk Green, with respect to that, that is a Scrivener's error. With respect to this Class C license, we'll make sure that it goes from 27 to 28 to reconcile the numbers.
All right. So I move introduction and at the same time move to suspend the rules on this item. Next is item 812, Ordinance 79011, which amends Class AC liquor licenses authorizing limited alcohol consumption and viewing auditoriums. This is off the agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. Next, A13, the committee recommends passage of Ordinance 84011 to increase the number of Class B licenses from 16 to 17 to permit issuance to Taco Diablo, 1029 Davis Street. This was introduced at our last council meeting. Next, under Planning and Development, Madam Mayor, let me just announce, first of all, that the item having to do with licensing has been removed from the consent agenda. In fact, it has been tabled by the committee and will be addressed by the committee chair. P1, the Zoning Board of Appeals, ZBA, recommends introduction of Ordinance 97011, which grants a special use for the operation of a Type 2 restaurant, a Subway, at 724 Clark Street. The committee recommends approval and agrees with the Zoning Board of Appeal to adopt Ordinance 99011, which grants a special use permit for the operation of an automobile body repair shop at 1961 Dempster Street. The organization is A1 Auto Care. Next, we ask for action on Ordinance 90011. The Sign Review and Appeals Board recommends approval of Ordinance 90011. This amends the sign regulations to improve administration. Next is Ordinance 89011, which grants major variations for the construction of a multifamily building located at 2500 Green Bay Road in the R5 General Residential District. The council amended to delete a condition of a parking lease for 3 off-street parking spaces and that were recommended by ZBA, and that is the amendment that is included in this ordinance. Next is the committee recommends approval of the amended Ordinance 88011.
Alderman Rennie, could you remove that, please?
Oh, yes, I will. This is the ordinance that has to do with the bed and breakfast. It's removed from the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. Under Human Services Committee recommends approval of the October 11 Township Evanston payroll and bills in the amount of $137,024.16. The committee recommends approval. Do we want to take this off the consent agenda? The marijuana one?
Introduction.
Oh, it's just for, I'm sorry. Okay, no problem. All right, Ordinance 92011 amends certain provisions of Title 8, Chapter 16 of the Evanston Municipal Code entitled Marijuana. This is for introduction. Under other committees, let's see, this is the CD Committee, of which I chair, recommends approval of Resolution 60R11, which amends the 2009-2010 Community Development Block Grant Programs and authorizing the reallocation of $65,693 in unexpended funds to the city's 2012 program. The funding is from the 2009-2010 remaining funds of the block grant. That's for action. Next is Resolution 61R11, which approves the 2012 one-year action plan. We recommend approval of this resolution, which approves the 2012 plan and the estimated FY 2012 Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership Home, and the Emergency Shelter Grant, ESG, program budgets totaling $2,031,185. This is recommended by the Community Development Act Committee. Next is Resolution 62R11. We recommend approval of this resolution amending the Community Development Block Grant Recovery, this is CDBGR, program that allocates remaining funds totaling $131,453.32 for economic development activities in the city's South Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy area. Funding will be provided by the CDBGR grant from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. Next, the Economic Development Committee recommends, and staff recommends, approval of the $77,000 in budget assistance funding for a 12-month period commencing January 1, 2012 through December 31st, 2012 to Evmark, doing business as Downtown Evanston. Proposes that funding for this item be split between Economic Development Funds, Economic Development Partnership Contribution Account, and the Washington National TIF. The Economic Development Committee also requests your approval of a $31,500 loan evenly split.
Alderman Rainey, could you take that?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, okay, this is the Corrado Cutlery application. All right, next is the Economic Development Committee. Do you want this off too?
Yes.
No, you do, okay. How about financial assistance for facade improvement before I get into it?
Yes.
No, we'll leave that one on.
No, off.
Off?
Yeah.
Off, okay. All right, so next is appointments. The appointments recommended by the mayor to the Environment Board, Susan Besson, and Madam Mayor, that completes the consent agenda, and I move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Seeing no requests for discussion, City Clerk, could you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes. Aye. Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the consent agenda passes. Alderman Rainey?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you noticed tonight there was a series of CDBG actions on the consent agenda. If you read through the packet, and those of you who are not on the committee were spared the other 25 pounds of literature
Thank
that
you.
our staff produces, and I want to thank specifically Sarah Flax for her hard work on the committee, and all the committee members who had the worst job this year because we were cut to the bone by what we hope is our allocation. We're still basing our allocations on projected, the possible amount that we're getting. So we may even have more work to do in cutting back. So I just wanted to thank everybody involved, especially Sarah.
And thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris, could we have Administration and Public Works?
For your consideration, is on. A8 Ordinance 93-0-11, increasing the number of Class D liquor licenses to permit issuance to Old Neighborhood Grill Incorporated. The local liquor commissioner recommends introduction, suspension of the rules, and adoption of Ordinance 93-0-11, amending subsection 3-5-6D of the City Code to increase the number of Class D liquor licenses from 23 to 24 to permit issuance to Old Neighborhood Grill at 2902 Central Street.
No, I already suspended.
You already suspended?
You just moved to approve.
Move to approve.
Second, third.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the issuance of the Class D liquor license to the Old Neighborhood Grill. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes. Alderman Tindem. Alderman Glover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Item A9, Ordinance 94-0-11, increasing the number of Class C liquor licenses to permit issuance to Austin's Tacos, LLC. The local liquor commissioner recommends introduction, suspension of the rules, and adoption of Ordinance 94-0-11, amending subsection 3-5-6C of the City Code to increase the number of Class C liquor licenses from 26 to 27 to permit issuance to Austin's Tacos, LLC at 622 Davis Street. I move approval.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 94-011. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes. Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Item A10, Ordinance 95-0-11, decreasing the number of Class C liquor licenses due to the closure of Carmen's Pizza. The local liquor commissioner recommends passage of Ordinance 95-0-11, amending Section 3-5-6C of the City Code to decrease the number of Class C liquor licenses from 27 to 26 due to the closure of Carmen's Pizza at 1014 Church Street. This housekeeping ordinance withdraws the Class C license held by Carmen's Pizza, which was closed in spring 2011. The Liquor Control Board, Review Board approved an increase for Carmen's of Evanston, which is reflected by 96-0-11. Move approval?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes. Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
A11, Ordinance 96-0-11, increasing the number of Class C liquor licenses to permit issuance to Carmen's of Evanston, Incorporated. Move approval?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the increased number of Class C liquor licenses to permit issuance to Carmen's. Seeing no lights, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes. Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
I think just one more on this one.
All right.
A12, Ordinance 79-0-11, amend. Oh, I'm sorry.
But she's got to say that.
I have to read it and say it's been pulled off.
Yeah, it's off.
No, I'm just going to read the top. Yes, I'm right on this.
Let everyone know what's been pulled off. Thank you, Alderman Burris.
Thank you. Amending Class AC liquor licenses authorizing limited alcohol consumption in viewing auditoriums has been pulled off the agenda.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, we would propose that the item be continued to your November 28th council meeting. Without objection.
That's fine. There are no objections. Alderman Burris, thank you. That concludes your report. Alderman Holmes, do you have a report from Planning and Development?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. P3 Ordinance 38-011 licensing rental units. The committee voted to, it was voted by the committee to have the staff report back to the committee on November 28th with a suggested composition of a subcommittee to review and refine the licensing rental unit ordinance, with the work on this project to be completed within 90 days, and that we would have a committee made up of aldermen, landlords, students, tenants, we'll be looking for the staff with some guidance from that when they come back to us on the 28th. I think I got it all.
Thank you. City Manager, did you want to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It is normally practice that staff doesn't set the composition of committees. I think...
No, we don't want them to.
I'm sorry?
We're not setting it. We're just making suggestions in terms of
Okay,
who
and
might be.
I just want to make sure that we're clear and there's no ambiguity
Absolutely.
with this. So,
No,
very
we
good.
understand that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Ordinance 88-0-11, granting a special use for a bed and breakfast establishment at 300 Church Street. Staff recommends approval of the revised ordinance 88-0-11. The ordinance has been revised consistent with the amendments. This includes revision to the operator restricted language, the coach house occupancy restriction language, and the off-street parking requirements. This ordinance was introduced and amended. Amendments proposed to the ordinance at the October 24th City Council meeting. I would move approval of it now.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Fisk?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to address this. I continue to believe that this is not the intent of the city when it created a designation for a bed and breakfast establishment in the 1993 zoning ordinance. This is a determination that the ZBA concurred with in 2 meetings. And I believe that this is more in conformance with the concept of a private guest hotel. And I would be more than happy to consider a designation of that type in the zoning ordinance, but this, what is being proposed here is simply not what was intended under the current zoning ordinance. So what I would ask you to vote against this and come back with something that is more appropriate for the type of business that's going to be run here. And I want to remind you all that this is going to be owner-occupied by a 1% owner. All of the units or all of the bedrooms in the house are going to be rented out. And it, again, is just not consistent, as we've heard in testimony from people who were involved in the creation of the 1993 zoning ordinance, not consistent with that intention.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights for discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Holmes?
Aye.
Alderman Tindem? Aye. Alderman Grover? Aye. Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Burris?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk?
No.
Alderman Braithwaite?
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen? No. 7-2.
7-2, the motion passes. Alderman Rainey?
Madam Mayor, I find Alderman Fisk's suggestion of a reference very intriguing, and I think you should make that reference to the Plan Commission regarding a new designation going forward.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Currently now, the zoning committee of the Plan Commission is looking at further defining beds and breakfasts in the zoning ordinance, and I think after that time, that's an appropriate next step.
Thank you. We are now under other committees. Who's the chairman? All right. Thank you, Alderman Burris.
No problem. 05, approval of request for financial assistance for the relocation and expansion of Colorado Cutlery to 716 Main Street. The Economic Development Committee and staff recommend approval of a $31,500 loan, evenly split between forgivable debt and interest-free debt, to Colorado Cutlery LLC for its planned relocation and expansion to 716 Main Street. The Economic Development Committee and staff also recommend that the City Council authorize the City Manager to enter into an agreement with Colorado Cutlery for the proposed funding.
Funding will be provided by the Economic Development Fund's Business Attraction and Expansion account. I move approval.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Fisk? Okay, I have no judgment as to whose light went on first.
This, again, is not something that I'm going to support, and my problem is very specific with it. I just have difficulty giving money to a business with the stipulation that they create a certain number of full-time jobs at a time when we're suggesting eliminating city positions that I find critical. And I'm not ready to support the expenditure of those funds at this time for that purpose.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
And generally speaking, this is not a position that I want to take, and this is not at all a reflection on, and my, I guess, comments apply to the next two items that I asked to have taken off the consent agenda as well. And it's not a reflection on the businesses or the owners, and as far as I'm aware, all of the business owners and operators are exemplary members of the community. But given our economic circumstances and the environment, I think we should be dialing back these types of business grants for private development, and we should be developing more of a needs-based policy. And as Alderman Fisk indicated, we're in a situation where we're laying off city staff, we are cutting back programs, and economic development is tremendously important, but I don't see us taking a position where these things are particularly needs-based. And just because we've allocated money for a category, the economic development category, doesn't mean we have to spend it. It doesn't mean we have to spend every cent that we put into a category. And so therefore, I'm not going to support this, unfortunately.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking ahead to our agenda, we all identified economic development as our #1 priority for the city of Evanston, which for me, sitting up here, raises the primary question, which is, what is our role in economic development? Is it waiting for people to come to us to tell us what they think Evanston needs or what Evanston should look like? Is it waiting for them to come to us instead of going out there and finding businesses and making it happen and playing an active role in what Evanston's economic activity should be and what the landscape should be in Evanston? We have a number of tools at our disposal to make things happen. This city council does, our city staff does, and we're doing the business retention work and we're doing the business attraction work. But there's also a big role for us to play in actually investing in the businesses, people who want to do business in Evanston. I see a lot of the, in my comments go to the next 3 agenda items, Alderman Wilson, that you want to address. I see these grants to businesses, some of them as loans, as performance grants. I'm very comfortable with asking Ward Manufacturing to produce jobs when we invest in their business. I'm very comfortable asking Corrado Cutlery to produce jobs for the city of Evanston. We purchase property to make things happen so that we can control development. We give grants to businesses so that we can make street fronts, street landscapes more attractive that might bring more businesses in. I really think this is the time for the city to play a role in investing in economic development and not waiting for it to come to us. I think we have to go out and get it. We got to make it happen ourselves. And these kind of investments produce jobs. They make Evanston more attractive to more businesses. I want to make all of our businesses magnetic to more, not just foot traffic, not just more businesses, but I want people from outside Evanston to come shop here. And I want Corrado Cutlery to be successful. I don't want these businesses to fail, and I think we can have a role in that.
Thank you. Alderman Burris?
Alderman Grover basically stated exactly what I wanted to state, and that's exactly right. And I mentioned, this was a couple months ago, about having a tutorial for the council on what is economic development. I want to reference that again to the city manager, because I don't think that we have a clear understanding or an agreed upon understanding of what is economic development. We all say it's our #1 priority. We all say that that's what's going to get us out of the problems, financial problems we're in. But we do need to be proactive. We can't just be reactive. And we have to help these small businesses. A $15,000 basically grant with a $15,000 loan is an investment in not only a business going into the 4th Ward, that is also a person that lives in the 9th Ward with a family. That business is going to also, it's taking part of a space that is at a current business on Main Street, helping that business be able to generate more money to once again put back in that business and create more revenue. It will also create more foot traffic, which then we can add more businesses along that stretch of Main. There are a couple of vacant storefronts along that stretch of Main. This is economic development. It's not the bringing in the big Fortune 500 headquarters. That's not going to happen any longer. I know it's disappointing, but it's not. We're going to build economic development by businesses that are creating 5 jobs, 10 jobs, 20 jobs, and we will build from there. And that will bring momentum to the city. I believe we have to do these smaller projects. We have an economic development fund that we need to use to leverage. And if we have a citizen who wants to keep his business here in town, we should be behind that 100%. We should be, as Alderman Grover said, out there beating the bushes. And economic development, when I was chair for the last 6 months, one of the first things that I asked of all the committee members, which business have you talked to this month? Who did you try to recruit to bring in? Who did you go out and say, Evanston is a great place to be? We should all be doing that. I think every time we come to council, we should be talking about which businesses we have talked to. What are we doing out there? I know a lot of us already do it, but we have to be more proactive, and we just can't keep saying, well, we don't have the money. We have to invest a little. This is a great return on our investment. This is ROI at the best.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
The goal of the Economic Development Committee was very clearly stated, and that is the purpose of the committee is to generate the retention, the expansion, and attraction of new businesses to the city of Evanston. And Alderman Grover's speech, I think, her presentation tonight, I think should be written down, recorded, and was just absolutely excellent. You touched on everything I wanted to say in a way much better than I could say. We're getting Gordon Foods. There was controversy about aiding Gordon Foods, a great big company. But we aided them. They're breaking ground next week. They close on the property. They're breaking ground. They are going to provide jobs. They're going to provide services to this town. It absolutely is a way to reduce the property tax levy. The only way to reduce the property tax levy is to generate a larger base of sales tax and other taxes. I mean, we have Skokie envy until we're green. And the reason we have Skokie envy is because of their property tax situation. And the reason their property tax situation is what it is, and like you say, we'll never have what they have, but they have Old Orchard and a multitude of other retail and commercial. And until we get going and get more of that, our property tax issue will always be very, very draining on the citizenry. So I support this very small amount of money. I'm glad that's all they need. I'm prepared to help others, too.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
And I'm not suggesting that we eliminate this kind of thing and eliminate this in economic development. But what I do think we should be doing is to be making needs-based assessments. Gordon Foods had a specific need. When I look at a business plan that appears to me to be completely premised on debt and grant with no capital investment, I don't see that investment in Evanston. I want to see a capital investment in Evanston. Okay, Gordon Foods is putting a lot of dollars into the purchase and the construction of the property. That's different. We have a series of items on here that all vary in their concept, but how do I go down Main Street and look the other business owners in the eye who I've been talking to for 2 years about their struggles and difficulties and justify why one person's getting cash and they're not? They're getting banners and some money for flyers and coupons and things like that. It's a little bit difficult to do that. And again, without that kind of capital investment, I have a much more difficult time going along with this. If the economic circumstances were different, I would be looking at this differently, very differently. But they're not. And it's time to start making tough choices. And to me, this isn't as tough a choice as cutting out the guys who are cutting the trees back.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Alderman Wilson. I would feel much, much better if I knew that our city staff was looking very critically at a business plan. And I'm just hoping that this is also contingent on where we refer to the forgivable portion of the loan would convert to an interest-free loan due in full within 3 years of project completion. I'm hoping that if the business is not successful within 3 years, that money would be repaid. Is that correct? What happens if they don't stay in business for 3 years? Well, I'm just saying, what on paper, what happens if they don't stay in business for 3 years?
Nancy Ratkovich, our Economic Development Manager, is here.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Razovich. I'm the Economic Development Manager. If he happens to go out of business in 3 years, there's some things that we're trying to claim back with some of the conditions, things like the custom-built cabinetry and stuff like that. When this was discussed at the Economic Development Committee level, one of the things that we talked through was the idea of risk and being able to take a little bit of risk in order to help facilitate additional economic development activities. And, you know, part of the risk was that, you know, that portion, that half that would be forgivable may not be able to be paid back, but, you know, we're hoping that by taking that risk, we can help create some more synergy and get some more businesses going.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes?
Usually I'm not one to want to stand up and echo what somebody has already said. I just nod my head and let them know I agree with them, and certainly Alderman Grover, Alderman Burris, and Alderman Rainey have said what needs to be said about this. But I needed to say that this, in terms of really trying to attract or encourage our small businesses to expand their businesses and to do new hires. And this one particular at 724, 716 Main, is a relocation and an expansion. He's in another location, so it's not like he's already there. But the other thing I wanted to say is that this weekend I had the privilege of attending a function at a church, which turned out to be really exciting for me, and I was sharing this with Director Griffin earlier, in terms of I met about 25 new entrepreneurs that I never knew existed, and I'm sure our city staff, I know you don't know about them, nobody knows about them, but I was so encouraged by them because they too would like to be able to be a business in Evanston. They are doing small stuff, but they may be able one day just to hire 1 or 2 people, maybe not even 5. And I think that if we are going to expand our base, it's the kind of encouragement that we need to give to folk with this money that we have allocated for this particular reason, for nothing else. So I understand that it's hard times. And so, Alderman Wilson, I really do understand that, and I hear where you're coming from with it. But I think that if we are going to make things better for our taxpayers, that we've got to get more businesses into this community, and so therefore I'm going to support this for all
Thank
three.
you. Alderman Burris?
Actually, it's to Alderman Wilson. You said the comment about going down Main Street and how you look other businesses in the eye. I would really encourage you to go out and talk to those businesses about all the city programs we have, and maybe you can get them to expand, or if they want to go to another location even, as another part of, move to have a business partially in North Evanston. We should be on the west side, sorry. That we need to be talking to every one of the businesses we have about all the programs, be it a state program, Small Business Opportunity Center, what other programs the city has. We should be encouraging those businesses to take every advantage of every program we have. We need to find a way to help them. So please go talk to them. That would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
I think I heard that something about a business plan. These people had a very extraordinary business plan because they received an SBA loan, which, that's absolutely the bottom line requirement to get one of those loans. So we did see that.
Thank you. I have two more speakers, and I'd like to remind you it's 10 at night and we have a ways to go still. Alderman Grover?
The last comment on this, Alderman Braithwaite and I attended the National League of Cities Conference last week, and just hammered home for me that in Evanston, once you take out of consideration of potential for economic growth, our major employers, our two hospitals, the university, the school districts, and the city of Evanston, it's pretty clear that the best potential for growing economic activity and jobs in Evanston is with our small and mid-sized businesses. I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of movement and growth in jobs with our major employers, institutional employers. In fact, we're going the other way in Evanston. So the real potential for generating this kind of economic activity and development is the small and mid-sized businesses. Those are the ones we ought to be supporting and connecting in a larger way.
Thank you. That concludes speakers on this issue. It's been moved and seconded to approve the request for financial assistance for the relocation and expansion of Corrado Cutlery to 716 Main Street. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Holmes?
Aye.
Alderman Tindem?
Aye.
Alderman Grover? Aye. Alderman Rainey? Aye. Alderman Burris? Aye. Alderman Fisk? No. Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen? 7-2.
7-2, the motion passes.
Item 06, approval of financial assistance for redevelopment of property located at the southeast corner of Main Street and Chicago Avenue. The Economic Development Committee and staff support recommended approval of the second of two grants to OMS Evanston LLC, developers of the property at the southeast corner of Main Street and Chicago Avenue. It is recommended that this assistance be in an amount of $20,000 for activities associated with the redevelopment of the property. Staff proposes funding for this item come from the Economic Development Fund's Business Attractions and Expansion Program. I move approval, and I don't know if Alderman Nguyen would like to speak to it.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Nguyen, did you want to speak to the issue?
I'll speak briefly to it, Madam Mayor, but I didn't take it off. This is the second $20,000 that of a $40,000 amount that we at Economic Development had discussed to give to the developers, the purchasers of the corner of Main and Chicago. We have property owners there who have this extraordinary piece of land that is at this remarkable corner, and it's empty. And instead of having another condo building developed there, we are hoping to have a $35 to $40 million office building. And we're very hopeful that that will occur. The market over the summer has dragged more than we expected and more than the property owner expected. So some of the very hot leads that they had have not panned out quite the way that they expected, but they're still marketing it. And I think it's very important for the city to move forward with this second $20,000 to further demonstrate the city's support behind this concept, which takes a little bit of rethinking in terms of using this site. I mean, so many people have thought of this for so long as new residential, new condos. Oh, the condo market is dead. But Chicago Avenue is changing. The Amley project is going to be starting demolition probably within the next month south of this corner. CTA is repairing the wall, first time in 100 years, along Chicago Avenue. There are other good developments happening along Chicago Avenue. This corner of Main and Chicago has the potential to really alter what else happens in South Evanston for quite a while to come. So I would urge my fellow council members to continue to support this developer. They're out there searching the marketplace and getting people to think differently about this corner and what can happen there. As we all may have heard, it's a fact I like to recite. Outside of Chicago, there are only 3 places that both the Metra and the CTA have stops next to each other. One is Oak Park, and 2 other places are here in Evanston, and one of them is at Main Street. So that's one of those valuable pieces that we have that we need to continue to market. So I urge you all to continue to support this money as a demonstration of the fact that the city is behind this property owner, and we are supporting them and working with them in searching the marketplace for an appropriate tenant so that they can start building the building.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could someone just answer the question for me? Didn't this developer say they didn't need the $20,000?
Alderman Nguyen.
There was some confusion at the last Economic Development Committee meeting. Just before the meeting started, they had heard some negative news from one of the tenants that they had a lot of hope in. And so at that point, they felt that it perhaps would be disingenuous for them to accept the money. Since then, there have been other developments that have occurred, and they have spoken to Johanna Neiden and me and the city manager, and said that we did not know that they had gotten this piece of news. We had met with them the day before, and everything was fine. But since then, they have had other developments happen, and they would use the money in the marketing manner that we had always discussed and planned for them to do that.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, did you have anything to say? All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the financial assistance for redevelopment of property located at the southeast corner of Main Street and Chicago Avenue. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Holmes?
Aye.
Alderman Tindem? Aye. Alderman Grover? Aye. Alderman Rainey? Aye. Alderman Burris? Alderman Fisk?
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
8-1.
8-1, the motion passes. Alderman Burris.
Hello again. Item 07, approval of financial assistance from the Facade Improvement Program for 604-606 Davis Street. The Economic Development Committee and staff recommend approval for financial assistance for facade improvements to the commercial building located at 604-606 Davis Street on a 50-50 cost-sharing basis not to exceed $10,900. The funding provided by the Economic Development Fund's Business District Improvement Fund. The 2011 fiscal year budget allocated $175,000 to this account. To date, $144,975.95 have been spent. I move approval.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you. I don't consider this an improvement to the downtown, and I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights? Seeing no further lights, guys. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Holmes? Aye. Alderman Tindem? Aye. Alderman Grover? Aye. Alderman Rainey? Aye. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 8-1.
8-1, the motion passes. City Manager, next is a special order of business, the City Council priority goals.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, it is now 10:10. We also hope this evening to do an executive session. You have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow evening to discuss the budget. So I'd like to perhaps quiz you a little bit to see how best to use our time moving forward. I would propose that we put aside the council priority goals. The staff report is there. It's not 2012 yet, and perhaps this could be dealt with either on November 28th or December 12th to wrap that up. Would that be acceptable to the council?
Alderman Rainey?
I would suggest that we go with our brilliant city manager's great idea.
Wasn't one of our goals to end meetings on the day they started?
Yes. That's never been my goal.
So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, if that's your pleasure, that then takes us to the budget discussion. The council has had two previous workshops where you have heard public testimony, where you have raised issues. I think it may be useful this evening, if you're willing to spend a little bit of time to try to come to some agreement on some additional revenue raising that you had previously talked about, because I think from your discussion previously, you were concerned about the impacts of making staff reductions, and would there be counterbalancing revenues or other reductions to balance that out. And I think if we start getting some of those issues out on the table this evening, that may begin to narrow the focus of discussions. I think it's our hope that tomorrow evening the council could come to a conclusion of its discussions. And I think if you knew how much money you had to play with by raising some additional revenues, because again, the council has talked about some adjustments in the area of parking. You've talked about some adjustments in the area of refuse, that if there's general agreement and we can share with you the dollar amounts we think that's available, that may be appropriate then to move on to start tomorrow evening with some of the items that you wish to restore. You've talked about several positions. And so that would kind of provide that kind of framework so that we could start focusing on balancing. By my estimations, we're talking about a nut that's probably somewhere between $1.5 million and $2 million on the high side. So, and you have already identified some revenue sources that get you a fair amount of the way there. So my thought is that might help narrow the focus of your discussions and maybe get some of that out tonight, and then so you could be able to pick up from that point tomorrow evening.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
I agree. And I would like to move that we increase the parking at the meters by 25 cents an hour throughout the city of Evanston. I don't think we just talked about it.
You just talked about it.
25 cents an hour citywide, right? At the meters. No.
And Alderman Wilson, you're recognizing that we have two meter rates. We have a meter rate in the downtown,
right,
which would raise this to $1 an hour, and then elsewhere in the city is 75 cents.
Right. I do understand that.
Alderman Grover? Alderman Rainey?
Mr. City Manager, when we talked about that at our last meeting, I indicated $600,000, and you indicated there would be a delay in the initiating that?
Yes.
It would be 500?
Yes, Alderman Rainey, members of the council, as you go through some of these, there are a few of these that we would recommend that you would budget 9 months of revenue to allow us time to be able to make conversions to notify the public. So in this instance, we estimate that raising parking meter revenue 25 cents for 9 months would bring in $525,000. So, Alderman Wilson, if that would be appropriate, we would assume that this would happen no later than, I guess, April 1st. We will try to implement it sooner, but the anticipation will take a little time to do that.
Okay, makes sense.
Alderman Fisk?
I would prefer to see the parking meter rates raised, if they're going to be raised, or at least made more equitable between the business districts in Evanston, and Main Street, Dempster, Downtown, Noyes, and Central Street, and then possibly look at other outlying areas that couldn't raise those rates. I think this does a disservice to the businesses that are downtown. I think it's very, very difficult. People have been responding very badly to the 75 cents an hour. People have been staying less in the stores and getting out quicker, especially when they run out of quarters. I think this will have the effect of driving small businesses out of the downtown. I already know people who go in. They will choose a restaurant outside the downtown just to avoid the parking until 9 p.m. So I think we need to be a little bit fairer to all of the business districts and a little bit fairer to those businesses located in the downtown.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
Well, I think one of the questions that I would have is that in terms of, one of the issues that we have talked about a lot on the Transportation and Parking Committee is the implementation and changeover to different types of meters. And if we did this, and part of the reason why we haven't made those changes is because there have been so many different types of new meters that have come out and what rapidly in the last few years. And we have been doing pilot programs in Evanston, as you all probably know. We have done two. We have one in the vicinity of Prairie Moon where you swiped your credit card through the meter, and so you didn't need to have change with you if you didn't have it and you had a credit card. We also have another pilot program on Clark Street. Yes. Let's see, help me out, just west of Chicago Avenue, which is similar to what Chicago uses, which is you pay in the box.
Right. Ours is not the pay and display. Ours is
it's just
pay at the box.
Pay at the box, and you indicate what your space is. Right. And so we've been piloting these two programs to see which of these, and when you pay at the box, you can also use a credit card. We've been piloting these various programs to figure out which works well in Evanston, and with the goal ultimately to switch over to the method that works best in our downtown and get rid of our old meter heads, all of those things, and perhaps to make it more convenient for people so that you don't have to walk around with quarters, because that is a very legitimate concern. And for people who don't realize that you don't need you can put other coins in besides quarters. There was an alderman who used to be represent the 4th Ward who for 10 years sat on this council and didn't know you could also put dimes and nickels in. And he was on the parking committee, but
is he now a judge?
Right, and he's now a judge. So. But I do think though that is a problem when we raise the rates, and I appreciate the revenue that we get. I'm trying to balance that, recognizing that we are very close to arriving at the new type of parking meter that we're going to use, and how much would this be offset? I'm looking at Marty. If we picked one of these two, pay by space or swipe with the card, the new meter heads. So I'm not sure. That would, sooner or later, we're going to convert over to those. So.
And Alderman, when members of the council, is our proposal to begin that next year. And so I think that gives you more flexibility with the hourly rate. I think, as you've said, regardless of dimes and nickels are allowable, there's still a lot of folks who look at the quarterly rate. So the council could have the flexibility to raise this at a different amount other than the 25 cents. It is doable. You could put it off a year until you have the equipment in place. My concern as your city manager is you're talking about putting back a lot of things, and this is right, relatively straightforward money.
No, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm raising that issue of if we start implementing that next year, does that eat into this $525,000
I'll leave that to Mr. Lyons.
Yes, that's my question.
Yes, Alderman Nguyen. We do have a one-time capital expense in the parking fund for that change-out. I don't know that we'll get all of the meters changed out in 1 year. However, our estimate is, just for disclosure, a 1 year change-out of everything. So we would go to a variety of electronic meters and the pay by space. Most likely, though, we'd also be looking at the other version of pay and display, because that is a little bit more efficient on the enforcement side. So it would be a little bit of both. And as soon as we could move those out of there, you would end up with either credit card functionality in the pay and display, or with the meters as well.
Right, or smartphone is the...
Which is ultimately part of, I mean, you could put,
Yeah,
you
there are
could
lots of
money on
different
account, and then you could pay
Right.
through a smartphone.
Yeah, okay, right. I do think, can I just, Mayor, may I just address the issue of
Go
the
right ahead.
outside? I think part of the reason why we have the differential in terms of the parking meter rates, I wouldn't support having a uniform rate throughout the city, is because some of our other business districts aren't as strong as the downtown, and because it's easy to avoid the meters in some of those places, some of the other areas, and you're going to fill up the neighborhoods. So while I can reluctantly support raising the downtown with the knowledge that we would be converting our meters over to much more user-friendly meters, then I think that would be the only way I could support that.
Thank you. Alderman Burris?
I actually want to echo everything that Alderman Nguyen just said, also being on the Parking and Transportation Committee. I'm in favor of raising the rates in the areas that have the pay and display, which I think on Clark it is pay and display, and the one at the Best Western
That
is
area,
pay and
right.
The spots, as well as the parking meters that use the credit cards. Because honestly, I don't think people are so concerned about the amount that it would be $1 an hour. It's the carrying all the coins around that's the issue. So if we could if we raise it, if we start with the places that you can use a credit card, like the pay and display, the boxes, that seems, I think, to be more palatable to me, to start there versus the meters. I don't know if that's doable or not.
Not enough spaces.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't tell you how many parking tickets I got in my first year on this job, only because it took me that long to realize that I always needed to put an extra quarter in the meter, because I was going to be in a conversation everywhere I went that required another 20 minutes of time. The one reason I can think of that I wouldn't want uniform parking meter rates all over Evanston is the availability of our parking decks downtown. Our outlying business districts don't have that kind of stacked up parking available to them as an alternative to street parking. And for that reason, I think there's a good policy reason that justifies having different rates outside of the downtown. I would support increasing the rates for each by a quarter per hour.
Thank you. Alderman Tendem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like the idea of bringing things back to the neighborhood as well with this increment of increase. I would like to see more efficient meters, but also it would be nice if some of this extra money could be diverted toward helping to improve sidewalk conditions and other things along these areas where people are parking. I think that would go a long way to making it much more palatable to all of us and make it much safer and more attractive for the businesses that we're trying to encourage to grow and to prosper in these, especially in the smaller districts like Central Street and Main Street and Dempster.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Boy, I wish you all could hear some of the people that I hear all the time who are shopping in the downtown. I think it's very, very different when you're talking about people coming to restaurants. Those people are willing to shop to park in the parking garages, and they generally spend a lot more time coming to both have lunch and dinner in the downtown. People generally who are parking in the downtown to shop need to park for various reasons close to where they are shopping. There just aren't that many places, small retail stores, to shop at in the downtown. The larger stores people generally walk to, like CVS and especially the businesses along Sherman Avenue that do a big business from the campus community. I have, again, a little bit of trouble with our talking about how much encouragement in terms of economic development money we want to spend in giving for facade improvement and other improvements, yet we don't want to spend that money on our consumers who are actually shopping at the stores and generating sales tax revenue. And I know of several other businesses that are going to be closing in the downtown. It's very, very difficult to do business. If you look at Central Street, you see a thriving retail area, albeit a small retail area. Downtown is a little bit more difficult because everyone's spread out. So everyone is trying to attract people to their businesses. But I bet if you reached out and went to the individual businesses and asked them how they would feel about $1 an hour parking rate and how close their patrons want to park to their businesses, you'd get a very clear sense of what is going on in the downtown. I'm just concerned that there hasn't been enough input or solicited from them to give all of you who aren't in the downtown shopping every day a real clear sense of what the problems that are facing the downtown non-restaurant business owners.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights, I think we're ready to vote on Alderman Wilson's proposal to increase the parking fees, which is, I think, a money issue. So, City Clerk, do you want to take a roll call?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
No.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 8-1.
8-1, the motion passes. Alderman Grover.
I believe Alderman Burris beat me to the trigger.
Good grief. All right, Alderman Burris. I'm going to have to get timers on these lights.
We're all two. I propose to raise the parking ticket fees from $10 to $15. Fine, sorry. Parking fines from 10 to 15.
All right, Alderman Grover. Did you want to speak to that issue? No. All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Wilson, did you want to speak to that issue?
Just that I don't support that.
All right, that was a succinct speech.
Yeah. I'm done with speeches.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
I agree with everything Alderman Wilson just said.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further lights, it's been moved and seconded. Oh, Alderman Burris.
Could you, Mr. Bobkowitz, how much would that raise in additional? You can find it faster than I can, I know.
$530,000.
Thank you.
It assumes no deterrent effect, though.
Just with the clarification that that 530 was $5 on a variety of tickets. The most often occurring is the $10 meter violation. So the report, though, was for several other time violations and things of that nature. And I can also give the page number on the budget memos for anyone that would like to know what that was.
What is it?
What's the page number?
While they're looking, Alderman Rainey, did you want to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you know, I don't support the motion, but secondly, I don't accept the revenue that's being projected to be generated. We are not doing, in my estimation, a good job collecting our fines and fees that have been assessed. I think that were we to do a better job collecting then I might support this. But I think there's probably $500,000 out there that's already been levied against scofflaws and people who have been ticketed. So I just don't see any point in raising the fine of something people aren't going to pay anyway.
Alderman Burris.
Oh.
No.
Sorry, I was trying to turn it off. I apologize.
Okay. City Manager.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, Alderman Rainey, as part of the proposed budget, we are proposing a full-time person who will do nothing but go after these fines. So we feel that's part of the proposed dollar amount would be considering that position was also included. Mr. Lyons, did you find the page number?
Yes, Mr. Bobkowitz. The actual page number was in the transmittal. This did not come from questions from the council. This was an original budget balancing recommendation, so it would be page 16 of the budget document. It was listed there, and there was a supplementary memo that we can also provide to the council.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson.
I agree with everything Alderman Rainey just said.
All right, seeing no further lights, it has been moved and seconded to increase. Alderman Nguyen.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lyons, I don't have that in front of me. What
did not provide the memo?
Well, I mean, the page he's discussing. What percentage of the tickets are parking tickets or expired meter tickets?
The expired meter, the ticket count was just under 50,000, and the total ticket count was 115,000. So nearly, a little bit, about 45% of them was the expired meter. I could give you the top 3 or 4 if you'd like.
What are the top, besides that, what are the other top 3 or 4?
And then after that would be no parking posted, so a no parking ticket. So the area of the street was posted
no
as
parking?
no parking.
Okay.
That was 18,000. And then no parking zone, 10,000. So put those two together. And then parked over posted maximum, so zone parking, if it was a 2 or, and then the last one, residential parking only. So if you added those all together, you'd be at about 70% or more of the violation categories.
Okay. Thank you. The reason why I asked that was to figure out if we decided to leave the parking expired meter fine at $10 and raise the other fines $5.
I do have that dollar amount.
Oh, you do? What is
Yes,
that?
that would be for a $5 increase. We're looking at, this was an annual, so it would be about $250,000 for that one alone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Once again, seeing no further lights, it's been moved and seconded to increase the parking fees. Alderman Burris.
Okay. Can I make an amendment?
Yes, you may.
To increase $5 to the fines, parking fines, for every area except expired meters.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to increase the parking fines $5 for every category except expired meters. And seeing no further lights, I'm going to very quickly ask the city manager or ask the city clerk to call a roll.
Alderman Wilson.
No.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
No.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
No.
That's 5-4, passes.
5-4, the motion passes. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 75 of our budget memos suggests that we have in the proposed budget underestimated the athletic contest tax revenue. Staff proposes increasing the estimate, the projection, by $53,663. Sounds like a good idea.
Round to 50?
We'll round it to 50. Page 75 of the budget memos, the most recent. I'm sorry, it's
Page 75 of the budget memo.
Oh, the memo.
of the memo. The memo.
Oh, the memo.
Right. Knowing that in 2011 we have one more home football game than we did last year, that revenue comes to us in 2012. In 2013, there will be 7 home football games, and it can't all be about men's athletics all the time, I'm saying. But that will be additional revenue in early 2013. I don't know if I need a motion to formally add an additional revenue projection. I move then, at Mr. Bobkowitz's suggestion, that we increase the estimated athletic contest tax revenue by $50,000. Actually, increase it to an estimate of $700,000. Let's make it that even number.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Let's increase it to
To increase it.
To 700,000.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We also have a new budget memo from, looking for the page, from Assistant City Manager, City Treasurer, Interim Marty Lyons, and Suzette Robinson, related to Public Works and Forestry. And I think what I'm needing is more information about, I'm looking at the collection of budget memos that kind of begin on page 126. But I'm specifically looking at information on page 131 suggesting that there could be a way to avoid layoffs of forestry people and the administrative assistant in forestry if forestry were put within our Public Works Department so that we could realize some cohesiveness of mission and purpose and function. And it looks as if from this memo that it may make good sense to do that. We don't have specific numbers, but I'd like some more information if it's possible before tomorrow night.
Madam Mayor, Alderman Grover, I don't know that we can give you much more. This memo has been prepared by Mr. Lyons, and Ms. Robinson has not been reviewed by other city departments. We wanted to provide this memo to you because the Public Works Director, Mr. Robinson, felt it was important to put this idea forward for the council's consideration. If this is something the council is interested in, I don't believe we have enough information for you for this budget cycle to move forward with this. However, it is something we could work on during the coming fiscal year and come back to you perhaps prior to mid-year with some issues. We want to be mindful of all employees and all positions that have been reduced. I think this memo helps the council harken back to some of the work you've done in previous years, and that is the Public Works Department has done a lot of work to streamline and find efficiencies. That has not happened in other departments. And so I think this memo is to represent those efficiencies that have been done, to indicate that there are additional efficiencies that could be found if we were to merge forestry with the rest of our public works field operations. But I don't believe, Alderman Grover, we would be prepared in 24 hours to speak to that. We would, however, take direction if the council felt this was worthy of additional study to come back to you sometime the first part of next year.
I think we do have 2 more weeks for this budget deliberation before we pass a budget in 2 weeks. So is it possible to get some information before then?
Again, I think...
Because it just seems Public Works has taken such a hit over the last several budget cycles. And you're right, they have realized all kinds of efficiencies. And I'd like to see if folding forestry into Public Works enhances the economy of scale in forestry, Public Works, and especially if these are employees who are doing jobs that span 2 departments, divisions. And I think it's definitely worth looking into, and if this can keep these very skilled, talented employees with us, whether they're in Public Works or Parks, Recreation, and Community Development.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
Well, I definitely do not support folding the Forestry Department into Public Works, and I would suggest that we implore the Forestry Department and the Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Department to figure out a way to develop some efficiencies so that the forest workers can stay on the job without folding them in. I don't see any reason why people can't perform tasks across departments. That to me feels barely innovative, and I would encourage that to happen. But I can't even imagine having a conversation about this at this point. This is something that I think would require a very careful presentation on the part of both departments so that we could understand it better. And in the meantime, I would certainly like to propose that we retain the 4 forestry workers. It's my understanding that the person identified as the secretary in the forestry department is staying with the city. Is that still correct?
Madam Mayor, Alderman Rainey, members of the council, once we made information available to our employees that their positions were on a list to be proposed for reduction, we encouraged all those employees to seek out other employment opportunities in the city. There was a similar clerical position in our Community and Economic Development Department that was vacant. A recruitment was done. The individual who is the secretary in our forestry division went through that recruitment, came in first in that recruitment, has been offered the position. She has asked, and we have granted her some time to see how this all works out. It would be a slight increase in salary for the individual, but she has asked, and we have let her to, rather than accept the position before the budget has been decided, to wait to see the outcome.
Okay, well, my position at this time is to retain the 4 forestry workers and not to make a transfer to Public Works.
Is that a motion?
Are you making a motion, Alderman Rainey?
I am, but I don't have the number in front of me. I know it was $140,000 in the last memo.
Well, I think 4 forestry workers might cover the motion.
Okay.
And then that would be a net of the 140 if we were not spending the money on the contract. So that was the savings that was estimated.
Second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to retain the 4 forestry workers. Alderman Burris, did you want to speak to that?
No, something else.
All right. Alderman Braithwaite, did you want to speak to that?
Not to the motion.
Okay. Alderman Fisk.
I'll call the question.
All right. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes. Aye. Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. Alderman Burris, did you have your light on for something else?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question.
All right.
Is that, okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Currently, how many furlough days are employees required to take?
Madam Mayor, Alderman Burris, members of the council, we are anticipating furlough days are subject to collective bargaining for our represented employees, are not subject to collective bargaining for our non-represented employees. We have made it clear as we begin negotiations, as well as to our non-represented employees, that we are looking to have 3 furlough days continue, which is the current plan. In the current year, there has been 3 furlough days at the employees' choosing. We have let our non-represented employees, as well as put forward at the bargaining table, our intention to propose 3 furlough days continuing.
Okay, so it's, as it stands right now, this past year, they had to take 3 furlough days.
At their own choosing. So at the beginning
Right,
of the
okay.
calendar year, employees submit to their supervisors dates. There's an altered plan in police and fire, but that works for all the other employees.
Okay, that's helpful, thanks.
Before anyone else speaks, I'm going to say what I'd like to say, which is that if I could make a motion, I would, that I'd like to remind you all there's a proposal to increase the sanitation service charge per unit per cart. That is an environmentally sound proposal because it encourages more recycling and it gives people the option of paying the extra money for the large cart or deciding to recycle more and use a smaller cart. So I don't feel that it does what I generally feel taxes do, which is to penalize people with the least amount of money, because here you do indeed have a choice. So I'm hoping that someone will make a motion on that subject at some time. Alderman Braithwaite, you were next on my list.
It was just a quick question, and I don't know if it's been answered with the vote. I thought that was a very interesting proposal that was brought up, and one of the questions that I have is I'd be curious to see what our peers are doing. So maybe just a comparison with our peer group. It was speaking to Alderman Grover's point that she just raised a moment ago, with folding the positions under one department, if there's an actual savings. I'm curious to know what are other cities, our local peer groups doing, as well as nationally, to help me make it, to understand the issue a little bit better.
And Alderman Braithwaite, members of the council, communities are different. Different communities do different things. Most all the communities around us have contracted out forestry service for a long time. I think that those communities have a different urban forest than we do, and the issues are different. Certainly we can provide you information. I think, though, that what we would find is there is a mix. As I think there has been a mix in this organization between who manages park maintenance, forestry. It usually goes back and forth between a public works department and a parks and recreation department. There is, I don't believe, a right answer. I think it depends on various factors. Again, if the city council would like us to pursue this in the future, we can do that, but it would take, I think, additional work and study that we don't have. 2 weeks' time would not be sufficient.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk? No. Good. Alderman Wilson.
I'd like to propose that we increase the refuse pickup charges. We have the chart on page 70 of the budget memos.
And staff has a recommendation, if you'd like it.
Out of curiosity, what was the staff recommendation? I had something in mind, but I was thinking $14.95 for the large, $9.45 for the small. What was staff's? Page 70 of the budget memos.
70, Peter.
70. We were not looking quite that ambitious. So why don't you go ahead and make your motion? We were looking at $1 for small cans and $2 for large cans increase.
I guess I was a little more aggressive than that. I was suggesting the $4 for the large and $2.50 for the small carts. And part of that rationale was looking at what some of the other communities are charging. I am appreciative of the fact that our community is sending, according to the information we received from the city staff, sending less material to the landfill. I think that is tremendously important. The recycling numbers are down, but hopefully that's just a reflection of the population of Evanston utilizing less material that needs to be dealt with one way or the other, and hopefully that will continue as a positive trend.
It's been moved to increase the recycling fees by how much?
Refuse.
I'm not the
recycling.
refuse fee, sorry.
Only refuse.
By how much?
$4 for the 95-gallon cart, $2.50 for the smaller cart.
Is there a second?
How about $3 for the big cart and $1.50 for the small cart?
Okay, Alderman Rainey.
Madam Mayor and Alderman Wilson, I would really request that you eliminate any increase for the small can. I think that is the only incentive to stay with the small can. We want to encourage people to keep the small can. So I can't support any increase in the small can.
And I guess just to address that, I do want to, we do want to raise more revenue with it. So I guess we don't want to put everyone in a position where the entire city gets the small can, maybe, or at least not immediately. But there is still going to be a significant differential there. I don't want to make it unaffordable for people. I have talked to some constituents about the smaller can, and $12 to $15 a year isn't an unconscionable amount.
It's on top of another 12 and another 100 and another this. It just adds up.
My suggestion is $3 for the small cart, $1.50 for the, I'm sorry, $3 for the large cart, $1.50 for the small cart.
Alderman Grover.
I think I'd prefer the staff recommendation, up to $14.95 for the 95-gallon cart and just $1 for the small cart, which preserves all the right incentives the way I see it. As a reminder, exchanging the larger cart for the smaller one is provided free of charge by our City Public Works Department, so it costs you nothing to make the change. You just call 311. It's as easy as that.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, I'm just curious what happens after a holiday like Christmas or Thanksgiving, where the small carts are overflowing. What do we do in that case? You keep it one more week. Keep your garbage.
Ms. Robinson hopefully will be coming out in a moment.
Well, Alderman Nguyen just raised something. You use your neighbors. I have a large cart, you have very little garbage, and my large cart is always filled with my neighbor's garbage, which is a public service.
Alderman Nguyen has been watching me.
Ms. Robinson, the question is, in case you didn't hear it, was in the case of things like the holiday, Christmas holidays, if someone has a small cart and they overflow, what happens? Have too much for the small cart?
They have to pay for a special pickup.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's $25, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
But you can recycle almost all of your Christmas wrappings, so you can still stay within that 65-gallon cart, even for holidays.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
So, Alderman Grover, was your suggestion $14.95 and $7.95? I'm okay with that.
That's $4
All right.
And one for the small cart.
Alderman Wilson, have you changed your motion?
I'll change my motion again. I'll propose $14.95 for the large cart and $7.95 for the small cart.
Second. And it's been proposed and seconded. Seeing no further lights, Alderman Fisk.
Sorry, I just have one more comment, and that is that this is an essential city service. I mean, when you talk about what services your municipality should provide, streets, fire, police, garbage. This is a basic city service. And yes, we want people to recycle, and we're encouraging people to do that. But I think we're almost at the point of being punitive, and that's not something I can support.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
I don't think we're at that point of being punitive if we compare it to what other municipalities are charging. And I do believe it would encourage people to recycle. I know that at least in my home, we recycle far more than we put into a garbage can. And I have 3, sometimes 4 people in my house, and we're not filling up the garbage can weekly, even coming close, probably half. So I think it would encourage people to recycle more and not have as much waste.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded, and seeing no further lights, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
No.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
No.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite. Thank you. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
2, 4, it's 5 and 4. It passes.
5 to 4, the motion passes. Alderman Grover.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. The changes we've already made to the proposed budget tonight, I guess I'd also like to talk about this from a larger level, that is the amount of our tax levy and what these changes amount to for proposed tax increase. I think we can all agree that we don't want to raise property taxes for our general fund. I don't know if we can agree about whether we raise the taxes for funding our pension obligation, but for the general fund, I'd really like for us to find a way to winnow this down so that we're not raising the general fund portion of this. And perhaps, Mr. Bobkowitz, between now and tomorrow, you can work your magic, play with the numbers here, and see if there's more that can be done to reduce the amount of the proposed property tax increase.
Alderman Grover, members of the council, we certainly can do that. There's a couple of other issues that you have raised in the past, and I'd like to mention them to see if they are easy, or if they're, perhaps say, if the council is of a like mind, so we can get those on the table as well. You had also talked, an item that was below the line, the transfer the cost of the ticket collection agency fee to violators, and that's a $90,000 increased revenue. Is that something that the council might consider?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Could you
Is
say
there a motion to that
page
effect?
18, I think.
Sorry?
I'm just looking for below the line
Right.
thing. Page 18, I believe it is. Yeah, page 18.
Yes, I think we should try.
Your motion.
I move that we include the costs of collection, or the collection agency. Is that for tickets? How would I word that?
The ticket collection agency fee for 2 violators, and again, we were proposing a 9-month fee, so that would be $90,000 for 9 months.
What the city manager said. That's my motion. That we assess those costs to the violators in addition to the fine amounts.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Fisk?
Yeah, could you just explain when the fee would kick in?
Mr. Lyons?
For the, Alderman Fisk, members of council, for the most part, that fee would kick in when we go to a secondary collection effort. So for anyone who pays on time, there'd be no fee. It's after we go to a secondary collection where we're using an outside firm that's actually charging a portion of the fee.
And how long is that usually?
I could follow up with the specifics on the timeline of when we would, I could have that in an email for tomorrow night.
Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes?
The additional park and recreational fee adjustments to $100,000, that's below the line item. Could we use that one as well?
I don't want to use that one.
Well, you don't, but maybe somebody else will.
Well, the city manager said, are there any easy ones? That's not going to be an easy one for me.
And I think in order to get to where Alderman Grover's going, if you can answer a couple questions for me, then I think I can come back tomorrow night with a plan that will get you where you want to go without having to get to some of the harder ones. So, Madam Mayor, I think there was a motion on the transfer of the ticket collection agency fee to violators.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I didn't get a second yet.
That's why I'm asking for one. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to transfer the cost of ticket collection agency fee to the violators. Is there any discussion of that proposal?
Yes.
Alderman Fisk.
I would just say after 60 days of the issuance of the ticket, which seems to be the time it would take to go to the outside collection. Is that, I was just guessing. You were guessing, okay.
Just that if we deviate from the timeline that we use in the analysis, all collection firms will tell you the likelihood of collection drops off at that point in time. So I'd like to, if we put the 60-day in, can we take a look at the number? It may change from 90 downward as you go farther out.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
All right, I won't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't want to put a date stipulation
Okay.
on it.
And again,
I
it's
just
not
want to be able to tell people what to expect.
And just to be clear, this is not someone going to a collection agent that would be on a credit report. This is just our secondary collection efforts that we've outsourced.
All right, is everybody comfortable with that motion? Alderman Rainey?
I'm very comfortable with it, but I want a little detail. When do we send tickets to collection agency? At what point after they're due?
And that's I asked the council that I get back to you via email with the schedule tomorrow before.
You have to pay in 10 days, right? And if you don't pay in 10 days.
Right.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to have the violators pay the fee.
That shouldn't be.
City Clerk, could you call the roll?
I'm a bit confused.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to transfer,
Fee to collection fines for violators.
not a 9-month fee.
The value of the $90,000 is we would impose this beginning April 1st.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or as early as practicable.
Or as early as practical.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, 2 additional questions. The next is an item that was discussed previously regarding extending parking meters from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. citywide, and that would be a 9-month revenue of $115,000.
No.
I do not support that.
No.
Okay. All right.
Alderman Rainey?
I indicate, I'm flip-flopping. I indicated some support for that, but if that were to be affected, then it would have to be a 3-hour from 6 to 9.
Let's see what else is on the list.
I think we should too, yeah.
And I just have one additional question, and then I promise I will come back tomorrow night with a solution that I think makes sense, and that is the issue of crossing guards. There's been some discussion of that. There's memos supporting this. It would be a $90,000 net savings. I've not heard a lot of support from the council. While I think it is, again, trying to get the balanced budget is a difficult process. Certainly, we're not looking to endanger students in any way, shape, or form. However, I've heard from members of the council who have heard from the community that while it might be efficient, it's not necessarily effective. And so I just want to get a sense of if the council is not in agreement of going down this road with crossing guards, then we'll just cross it off.
I don't want to go down that road.
We have to stop saying we're not going to go down a road and we don't want to cut things, we don't want to do things. It's like everything that Manager Bobkowitz brings up, it's no, no, no. At some point, we've got to say yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Economic development, okay. There were just a bunch of votes on that, so it's a balance. So.
ROI.
Alderman Rainey?
Madam Mayor, I would like the city manager to take a look at the projection for the real estate transfer tax. I know it's not, like Alderman Grover said, it's not as secure a projection as is the athletic tax. However, I think we can do a little better in our projection, and so I would recommend that.
All right.
I don't want to adjust that up.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Grover?
Sorry.
I think I was chiming in on crossing guards. Some of my favorite people in this city are crossing guards, but what's hard for me is when they don't show up. And I guess my real question is, if they are hired by an outside firm, will we be more likely to have reliable crossing guards at every one of our corners? It looks like there was a nice article in the paper last week. Ricky Voss did an interview about this very question. If you haven't seen it yet, please do. It looks like the crossing guards stand to earn more than they do now, being paid by the city. And we would be able to keep a lot of the same crossing guards. They interviewed one of my favorites, Daryl, who had been at Lincoln and Prairie for the longest time. So I guess my question is really about the reliability of that service. I have no doubt that if it's the same people helping our students and commuters cross safely, that we've accomplished that goal. The question is about just the reliability of getting them to show up so that our PEOs don't have to come and fill in.
Alderman Holmes?
I thought that was one of the benefits of having it outsourced, is that they would be responsible for having a substitute.
Yes.
There. I wasn't going to speak on that, but I had to.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk?
Thanks. I wanted to go back to Alderman Rainey's suggestion to look at the real estate transfer tax. It's now what Rodney paid by the seller, $5 per 1,000, or Clerk Green?
Yes, $5 per 1,000.
Okay. If we raised it, my suggestion would be that we split it between the buyer and the seller.
No, she's not looking at
Madam
the
Mayor?
budget estimate.
I just want we can't raise the transfer tax.
Why not?
I just want to have the manager look at increasing our projection of our receipts.
Of what they would be.
Okay?
Yeah.
Have we underestimated?
I think it's a little under.
I had a really great idea. I thought that was a really great
Do you
idea.
want to raise? We have to put it on a ballot.
Okay, guys, I'm going to regain control of this meeting, and we're going to deal with crossing guards first.
I think we're tired.
I think you're very right, Alderman Rainey. So it has been, I believe, moved and seconded to outsource the crossing guards. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. It wasn't moved. All right. It might be moved and seconded, and then again, it might not. Alderman Nguyen?
Can,
The city clerk
can
keeps
this-
saying it was moved.
Well, not that I remember, but can the city manager, if we did not vote on this right now, Mr. City Manager, could you still work some magic overnight and come back to us?
Absolutely.
Because I'm not ready to vote on that.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. There's no motion, and so we are going to drop the crossing guard discussion and take it up again tomorrow night. When I would like to remind you, we'll be right back here.
43.
40 how many?
43 or 44, I think. I think it's 44.
Okay, we'll get you.
We'll find out how many are Evanston residents.
We'll get you that as well. So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, what I'd like to do then overnight is come up with a plan that incorporates keeping the forestry workers, that reduces the property tax by 3%, that makes the amendment to the parking fee adjustments that you've made this evening, that raises the parking meters 25 cents for 9 months, which raises small can refuse for $1 for 9 months, large can refuse $4 for 9 months, adjusts the athletic tax by $53,663 to $700,000, and it has the transfer cost of ticket collection agency fee to violators for 9 months of $90,000. So I will come forward with some other adjustments and will propose to you a budget solution that would incorporate everything else that was in my initial proposed budget with some adjustments. And so I will come back to you with one page that basically says everything that was proposed is in with these exceptions for what would be removed and then additions in order to balance. So you'd have one number, again, as I said earlier this evening, in the $2 million range, probably now more in the $1.5 million range, and we'll have that for you to begin your deliberations tomorrow evening at 6:30.
Thank you. We have several lights still on. Alderman Holmes?
I would still like for us to consider the additional park and recreational fee adjustments as an additional below-the-line possibility.
Second, third.
It's been moved and seconded to...
I would say I have a lot to talk about on that regard, so...
All right, I have some other people...
If we want to stay late, I can pull that all
ahead
out.
of you, Alderman Wilson, but Alderman Fisk, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, but not right now.
Oh, okay. Alderman Burris.
I actually don't want to speak to that. I just want to ask a question if we can have for tomorrow. How long has the zoning planner position been vacant, as well as the parking enforcement officer vacant spot?
The zoning position's been a year, and the parking enforcement officer a little less than that, 10 months.
Okay, and I just want to clarify, if we purchase the new license recognition software, we can reduce by a parking person because it'll be less time intensive with the new recognition software, correct?
And that was a below-the-line alternative, which could be brought above the line.
Right, so those two positions brought above the line are about 160. Thank you.
That's correct.
I make a motion to eliminate, oh, can we, do you know?
We
the
have
mayor's-
Alderman Holmes's motion
Oh, I'm sorry.
at this point.
I'll second yours, too.
We're seconding each other's.
Okay. Could you leave me just one motion to deal with at a time, please? Thank you. Alderman Holmes, did you want to speak to your motion?
No, I just made the motion.
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
All right. Alderman Rainey, your light is still.
It's on another issue.
It's on another issue, I think.
All right. And Alderman Wilson, it's your turn.
I think I just would prefer, I'm not ready to vote on that, and I have a lot to say about it, and I would prefer to, in view of the fact that we have an executive session, pick this all up tomorrow. I anticipate spending a good deal of time on the Parks and Recreation and the fees.
Is that all right with you, Alderman Holmes?
As long as we talk about it.
Absolutely.
All right. You can make a quick motion.
I make a motion to eliminate the two vacant positions of the zoning planner position and the parking enforcement officer.
That are vacant.
That are vacant.
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Grover, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I would. They're vacant, there aren't people involved, but when you eliminate positions, I have to keep reminding myself, you're eliminating opportunities. You're eliminating, do we know if these positions are needed or not, or are we eliminating them simply because they're currently vacant?
If they've been vacant for a year, then
year?
you begin to wonder if you need them.
Yeah. Do we have more information about this?
I didn't see anything else.
I don't believe we provided memos on these two other than what they did. Alderman Grover, members of the council, we put them below the line because we felt that there was value to the positions. If we felt there was not value to the positions, we would have put them above the line. And so it's unusual to put vacant positions below the line. We put them on the table because obviously they're not impacting individuals. I remain concerned about our ability to with the planning department. As you know, one of our longtime planners, Dominic, left us, a month ago, not even a month ago at this point, 2 weeks ago, left us. And so we're kind of lean on any kind of experienced planners. So I'm cautious about that. We have replaced Dominic's position, and I don't know if that's it. So we have one planner starting in a week. Parking enforcement officer, my concern there was the council's making lots of changes to parking with fees, and I think we need as many boots on the street. If it makes sense 12 months from now to come back and eliminate that position, and I think we felt more comfortable 12 months from now if the parking recognition software was in place to make that adjustment. But that's kind of the short of it. Really, it's the council's call, but that's where we're at.
Alderman Rainey?
On eliminating the two positions, I would think for at least the zoning planner, we could do it for, we could eliminate for the first 6 months, because, you know, if things get wild and we have a lot of zoning requests, that means that we're going to start raising a lot of money, we can add it back in. But at this point in time, I think even guessing that we could get a zoning person in the next 6 months is, I think that's a savings for the first 6 months, definitely.
My recommendation to the council on this would be to eliminate the zoning planner position, but keep the parking enforcement officer. For the full-time employment.
Well, and
with no adjustment.
if we're talking about raising parking enforcement revenue, then we might need.
Of the two positions, I think we could do without the planner. I think because of the changes we're making with parking enforcement of the next 12 months, we're going to need as many folks as possible on the street to balance that out. I think Alderman Rainey's right. If we see a further uptick in the planning needs, I'd rather come back and add the position back in a year with a remembrance of this particular conversation. But I think it's the parking position that we should keep.
Alderman Fisk, I see your light on, and then I'd like to say we still have an executive session, and we're all getting very tired.
Okay, I'll make it short. I've been very critical about the lack of good zoning advice coming out of the city. And I do think, would certainly say, 3 to 6 months, but probably no more than that. We really need a solid zoning administrator in the city. And if it's not an administrator, certainly a planner. That happens to be the areas in which we generate a lot of, controversy. And I think that's just needed. I've spoken with the city manager about this for a couple of years now on various issues.
Are you willing to wait for a decision tomorrow night on this, or do you want to? All right. Alderman Wilson, do you have a motion?
I do have a motion. Skip called wards.
Oh. I thought we had an agreement to wait. Do you want to vote on it? Okay. All right. Alderman Wilson has a motion.
Skip call the wards, right?
Oh.
Skip call the wards.
All right. We'll
I'm okay skipping it.
Sorry, we're not skipping it. Okay. Alderman Wilson.
Call the wards. Thanks to everyone who came out for the ward meeting, fourth ward meeting. And if anybody has more comments or thoughts regarding the budget, please feel free, and I encourage you to contact me and let me know.
Thank you, Alderman Holmes.
Fifth Ward regular monthly meeting this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. at Fleetwood Jordan.
I'm on there if there's this memorandum to get this on the board.
Alderman Tandem.
Thank you. This Thursday at 7 p.m., a combination 6th and 7th Ward meeting at the Three Crowns Center. That's at 2323 McDaniel, and we'll be meeting on the main floor in the multipurpose room. We will have as a speaker that night and in Daniel Biss, our rep in the Springfield Assembly. We'll also have on hand City Manager Wally Bobkowitz to answer questions and talk about the budget, where we are right now with the budget issues, and both should be pretty lively, interesting conversations.
Thank you, Alderman Grover.
First, thank you, Evanston Police Department. They've had a busy, good month catching bad guys, Belizean drug people, and graffiti vandal. So thank you to Chief Eddington and everyone in the Evanston Police Department for a really good month, I think. Congratulations to our colleague, Alderman Braithwaite, who has been appointed Regional Director of Region 6 of the National Black Caucus of Elected Officials. This happened last week at the National League of Cities Conference. So I think Alderman Braithwaite's new role will enhance both his profile at the National League of Cities, but also his work for the city of Evanston.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to announce a ward meeting, November 22nd, 8th ward meeting. Lots to talk about. 7 o'clock, and we've decided on the outpost to have the meeting, 633 Howard Street. And Howard Street is where all the action is, except for last night, or early this morning, where all the action seemed to have been on Hull Terrace, Austin, and Asbury, where there were 9 auto burglaries and vandalisms. Cars were locked, people had their windows broken out, and things from their cars stolen. So I think we need to pay special attention to that neighborhood, and hopefully the chief is going to do that. People are just enraged over this. So anyway.
Thank you, Alderman Burris.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended the first annual Chief and Fire luncheon. It was very well attended, and thank you to the city manager for thinking of doing this, and for city staff of putting it together. And hopefully next year it'll be even more successful.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to remind everyone that coming up is the first ward meeting on December 6th. That's the first Tuesday in December at the Public Library, 7 to 9 p.m. Also, I'm very sad to have to share with you the news that Michael Hendershot has passed away. I don't know how many of you knew him, but he was just a fabulous guy. He was really young. He and his family had lived on Orrington Avenue. He grew up on Orrington Avenue, and his dad was a doctor. His mom was in real estate. They had 8 kids. But Mike was just a really fabulous guy. You just couldn't ever meet and talk with him without smiling. And I will miss him a lot. He was president of Northwestern Neighbors for a long time and brought a real sense of balance to that community group. He's survived by his wife Muffy and girls, Julia and Brooke, and I hope that all of you will keep him in your prayers and them as well.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick thank you to Alderman Grover. I had a really good trip out in Phoenix and learning from our peers, and no big secret some of the things that they're dealing with, that we're dealing with nationally: budget issues, property values decreasing, property values, issues of economic development. But one of the things that I learned in going to the workshops and having the conversations with our peers are just how right we're actually doing things in Evanston. And when you look at our community assets, the diversity, the lakefront, even the university, as well our city staff, we're really light years ahead of some of the cities and some of the elected officials that I had conversations with. So I really would like to use this time to acknowledge the city manager, our department heads, and the city staff that work so hard for our city. Even with our community engagement in this difficult budget period, this is a huge learning curve for me. I wouldn't want to serve any other place except for a town of Evanston. So just thank you to all our staff.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Nguyen.
Just briefly, a couple points. I echo Alderman Burris's comments about the Chief's inaugural luncheon for the Police and Fire Chiefs Foundation. It's an excellent new organization, and it was a very good luncheon. I also wanted to thank the Kiwanis for the Faces of Evanston pictures that we have as you come in the building. Every time I've come in, I am fascinated by these pictures, and I hope that we could possibly hold on to them, or some of them, here in the Civic Center, because they really provide a wonderful, wonderful spectrum all the way across for wonderful looks into how people view our city. So thank you very much. It's really wonderful.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen, and I meant to say something nice about it. It's made it so much more fun to come in the building. It's really terrific. All right, Alderman Wilson.
Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding personnel, collective bargaining, real estate litigation, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session, and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, C2, C5, C6, C11, and C21.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.